Hello everyone, Zeno here. Here to bring in part 14 of What If TMNT Were Teleport in Avatar. Link down description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 28, The Boiling Rock Part 2. Western Air Temple. It was just about dawn as Aang had woken up to feed Appa a stack of hay. As he patted his bison's head, he glanced to his left to see Katara walking in one direction, not even looking at Aang. Good morning, Katara. Aang greeted in a friendly manner. She shot him a glare that made his smile vanish before she resumed her walk away from him. Aang looked towards Appa who shared a concerned look before the young avatar quickly walked to Katara. Hey Katara, are you okay? He asked as he put a hand on her shoulder. What do you care? Katara uttered, as she didn't even look at him. Aang was completely surprised at how she just responded. What do you mean? Of course I care. You sure about that? She responded. It doesn't really seem like that since you don't trust me anymore. What? Aang questioned. I do trust you Katara. I heard what you and Leo were talking about yesterday. She turned around to Aang with a look of fury while Aang was completely surprised. How could you? After everything you and I've been through all this time, you trust him more than you trust me. Katara, Aang didn't know how to respond at first. I trust you, you're one of my closest friends, but so is Leo. There aren't any sides here, we're all friends. Not all of us, Katara argued. Zuko and Karai are not our friends. But you don't seem to get that, no one here does. Am I the only sane person here? How can any of you just let them in after all they've done? Aang took a deep breath. Katara, look, I get it, I do. I know they've done bad things, but they've done plenty of good things too. They want to help us. Zuko used the sword of Tengu to beat back the dark turtles by himself, and almost got his hands burnt off for it. Karai saved my life a couple times at the Sun Warriors temple too. It doesn't make up for what they've done. Katara said darkly. I think it does. Aang stated firmly. Katara, try to look at it through their point of view. Zuko was banished from his home, and the only way he could ever go back was to get me. I don't like it, but I get it. I know how it feels to be taken away from your home. And as horrible as it sounds, Shredder is Karai's father. Can you imagine how hard it was for her to leave her own father to help us? There was a moment where it felt like Katara was listening, but with a red flash in her eyes, her anger returned. We don't need their help. Katara, I need a firebending teacher. Aang told her. And since Shredder is telling the Fire Nation that I killed the Fire Lord, I'm not going to get any other volunteers. Zuko is my only option. Plus I've seen Karai, she is a great warrior, and she knows a lot about Shredder. And they've even got someone inside the foot working for them. Katara stubbornly turned around and began to walk away. You know what Aang? For someone who's supposed to be wise, you're unbearably naive. She stomped away while Aang could only look with concern as someone he truly loved began to sink deeper into darkness. The Boiling Rock. The Warden and several Fire Nation guards and foot ninja were at the top of the tower to greet the newly arrived prisoners, which included Master Splinter, Hakoda, and Usagi. Line them up for the Warden. One guard ordered as the other guards saw that the prisoners were put in a line to face the Warden. Sokka and Karai, still disguised as Fire Nation guards, as well as Don and Mikey, disguised as foot ninja, just arrived after escorting Suki, Zuko, and Casey back to their cells after confirming their friends were on the gondola. That is your father? Karai asked in a whisper to Sokka. Yeah, that's him, Sokka confirmed. Plus we got both Master Splinter and Usagi, looks like coming to the Boiling Rock was a good idea after all. Don whispered. Yeah, but how are we going to get out of this dump? Mikey questioned in a whisper. We'll figure something out, Sokka said as they tried to blend in. The Warden then began to directly address the prisoners. Welcome to the Boiling Rock. I'm sure you've all heard all the horrible rumors about our little island. Well, I just want to tell you that they don't have to be true. As long as you do everything I say. For now at least, Usagi uttered. What was that? The Warden asked the rabbit samurai with a slight glare. I question whether who it is we truly answer to in this place. Usagi stated to the Warden. You, or them. He gestured towards the foot ninja. The Warden had an expression of anger on his face as he pulled Usagi in by the collar of his shirt, but the samurai didn't deter. I make the decisions here. I am in charge. Keep that in mind or I'll be having rabbit stew for dinner. Keep your empty threats to yourself. Usagi told him directly to the warden's face. The warden threw him back, but Usagi stood up rather quickly and glared at the warden. Anyone else have anything to say? The warden questioned to the other prisoners. Only that those who depend solely on the power they have, will soon find that power turned against him. Master Splinter stated, causing the warden to turn to him. Is that some sort of threat, rat? The warden questioned. Is it? He placed his foot on Splinter's cuffs, forcing him to the ground. The disguised turtles were about to jump in, but Karai put a hand on both their shoulders to keep them from doing anything rash. It is not a threat, but a warning, Splinter said as he looked up the warden. The warden paid no mind to this. You will all do as I say or pay the price. He spoke to the prisoners. You will all. Before he could walk away, Hakoda stuck his foot out, causing the warden to trip and fall on the ground. Mikey, Sokka, and Don all snickered at that, while Karai bore an amused smile, as several guards came to help up the warden. The foot ninja stayed where they are. Are you okay, sir? I'm fine, the warden exclaimed as he stood up. Get these prisoners out of my sight. The guards and foot soldiers began to escort the prisoners away while Sokka, Don, Mikey, and Karai slowly backed away. Inside the prison, Usagi leaned back against the wall of the small cell he shared with Hakoda and Splinter, the former sitting on the only mattress while the rat sensei was in a meditative position. You guys wondering why all three of us are sharing the same cell? Hakoda wondered. Perhaps because there is no room in the prison. Usagi guessed. No, Splinter said. I feel the answer to us will come soon through that door. As soon as he said that, the door to the cell opened as one disguised guard, and two disguised ninja entered the cell. Splinter looked in their direction while Hakoda and Usagi glared. Thank goodness you're all okay. The disguised guard said, but Hakoda and Usagi took combat stances. If any of you take one step closer, you'll see just how okay we are. Hakoda glared. Splinter stood up. There is no need for that, he assured as he turned to the disguised individuals. Is it, my sons? Nope, Don said as he took off his mask with Mikey. Not at all. Sokka also lifted his helmet to reveal his face. Usagi and Hakoda were both surprised before the latter had tears of joy in his eyes. Sokka, my son. He and Sokka both hugged as Usagi smiled. It is good to see all of you. The rabbit samurai said. The two trolls nodded before they ran up to their sensei and hugged him. How do you know it was a sensei? Mikey asked. A father can tell these things. Splinter answered. Besides, I can smell you a mile away. Though you guys should be careful with those outfits. Hakoda advised. Almost punched your lights out. Sokka laughed nervously. Yeah, we sort of ran into that problem earlier. Western Air Temple. Leo was in the main courtyard area of the temple practicing some Tai Chi. He spent at least an hour working on this until he heard something heading his way fast. Leo ducked to avoid a water tentacle being sent at him. He looked towards Katara who had just shot it at him. You are so smug, you know that. Katara exclaimed in anger to Leo. It's bad enough you let Zuko and Karai in, but now you've turned Aang against me. I didn't turn anyone against you, Katara. Leo told her. I heard what you two were talking about. Katara exclaimed. I thought you might be able to listen to him since you've been unable to listen to me. Leo said to Katara. But I guess I was wrong. And maybe I was wrong too. Katara stated as she had a dark look aimed at Leo. Maybe I was wrong to ever trust you. Leo was surprised to hear those words from her. You think you know what's best for everyone, don't you? Katara began to mock. That we can't possibly survive without the wise and mighty Leonardo to lead us. Well, let me tell you something, before you and your brothers came along, we've handled things just fine. Oh, and how you've been acting qualifies as just fine. Leo questioned. How I've been acting? Katara exclaimed in disbelief. You haven't been yourself, Katara. Leo began. You've been holding yourself up in your room talking to yourself, brooding more than even Raph, and there was that whole thing about attacking Karai right out of the blue. What is going through that head of yours? Do not push me, Leo. Katara warned darkly. You can't possibly expect me to just go along with every order you give. I let Zuko and Karai into the group because we need them. Leo looked quite frustrated. Why can't you see that? We need them like we need extra garbage. Katara stated. Maybe things will be better off for all of us if I lead. Not as you are now. Leo pointed to her. You're too angry. Let me give you some advice. Whatever grudge you think you have, let it go. Otherwise what you do next will not only hurt you, but everyone else around you. Katara actually gave a slight chuckle. Oh, there actually is someone I want to hurt right now. She made a waterbending stance as she faced Leo. Leo had a serious look on his face. Katara, don't make me do this. I'm not taking orders from you anymore. Katara said as another red flash appeared in her eyes. Leo took out only one katana as he made a combat stance to face Katara. It would seem that words were not going to get through to her, so the only option left was to teach her a lesson. The boiling rock, the warden, and 2 escorting foot ninja, walked into a small cell that held Chit Sang, who was currently strapped to a chair. Are you comfortable, Chit Sang? The warden asked. If you're trying to get me to talk, forget it. I'm not a squealer, Chit Sang exclaimed as the warden walked behind him. Chit Sang, I only asked if you were comfortable. The warden said. Well, yeah, actually I am pretty comfortable, Chit Sang said, before the warden kicked the chair down, causing Chit Sang to fall on his face. Are you still comfortable? The warden asked as he walked up to him. No, Chit Sang grumbled. I know you and your cronies are not smart enough to come up with that little escape plan. The warden said, referring to the cooler boat plan. So you're gonna tell me, who is? He asked as he slowly began to walk out. The warden turned to the 2-foot ninja. He's all yours, he said as he walked out and the door was closed behind him, leaving Chit Sang with the 2 ninja. You are going to talk. One ninja said to him. One way, or another. Meanwhile, in the shared cell that held Hakoda, Usagi, and Splinter, Sokka was looking out the hole to see if anyone was watching them. So, where's Bato? Sokka asked. Where's everyone else from the invasion? Everyone else is being held in a prison near the Fire Nation Palace in the capital. Master Splinter replied. But how'd you guys end up here? Mikey asked. The 3 of us were singled out as their leaders and sent here. Usagi replied. But, before we left, I met some young women who said they knew Sokka. Hakoda tried to recall. The Ocean Nama fighters. You mean the Kyoshi warriors? Sokka asked. That's right, Hakoda remembered. Their leader Suki is in this prison too, and so is Casey. They're going to escape with all of us. Don told them. Usagi nodded. From the looks of this prison, we'll need all the allies we can get. Yeah, one more thing. Don said. You know Prince Zuko. The son of the late Fire Lord. Hakoda tried to remember. I don't know him, but I know of him. And there's also this woman named Karai. Sokka began, getting Splinter's attention. Who just so happens to be the Shredder's daughter. That guy has a daughter. Hakoda questioned in mild surprise. Adoptive daughter, but yeah. Don confirmed. And both she and Zuko are here too. Sounds like a major problem. Hakoda said, looking down. Mikey had a knowing grin on his face. Actually, they're both on our side now. Excuse me, Usagi questioned, while Hakoda bore a look of skepticism. Master Splinter had a look of mild surprise as well. Yeah, we know, Sokka said. After what they did, it was hard to trust either of them. But they've really proven themselves and we wouldn't have even made it here without their help. Master Splinter nodded. Just because someone bears the same blood of hated enemy, does not mean they cannot become a friend. Indeed, Usagi agreed. If you say this Zuko and this Karai are with us, that's enough for me. Oh, and one more thing Master Splinter. Don began. The Shredders rebuilt the Sword of Tengu. That caught Splinter completely off guard before his expression became serious. While Hakoda looked confused. The Sword of Tengu. A super powerful weapon, Mikey said. But, on the plus side, during that whole mess at the invasion, Zuko and Karai stole the sword and gave it to us. Splinter was again surprised before a relieved smile formed on his face. Well, I can take comfort in the fact it is no longer in the hands of the Shredder. Is this sword really all that? Hakoda asked. You have no idea, Don replied. Getting to the subject at hand, do you have a plan for escape? Usagi asked. Sokka looked down. We had one, but some of the other prisoners got involved and ruined it. I don't know if there's another way off this island. Hakoda smirked. Sokka, this prison's got with M2 water tribe geniuses, 3 ninjas, and a samurai. There's no way it can hold us all. Well, let's get to work. Don said as everyone circled to try and come up with a plan. After several moments, the group had come up with a plan. Hakoda, Splinter, and Usagi would wait in their shared cell until the time was right. Don, Mikey, and Sokka took up their disguised and regrouped with the disguised Karai and informed her of the plan. She thought the plan itself was a little crazy, but it was pretty much their only option. She would go ahead to tell Zuko while the others would tell the plan to Casey and Suki. The disguised Karai walked towards the cell that held the former Fire Prince. She looked into the hole and began to whisper. Zuko, can you hear me? I can hear you. Zuko whispered on the other side of the door. We have a new escape plan. Karai whispered but didn't get a chance to finish. What are you doing here? She turned around to see 2-foot ninja standing on a set of stairs facing her. Karai straightened herself up. I was telling this traitor how much I despise him. Karai stated. You will have to do that another time. One ninja said. He's coming with us. Karai looked confused. Why is that? None of your concern, fire trash. The second ninja replied. Give me at least a moment to teach him a lesson. Karai asked. The 2 ninja conceded. Very well, but only a moment. The second ninja told her. Karai walked into the cell and it sounded like a punching noise was heard. I'll never understand these Fire Nation people. Inside the cell, it was really Karai punching a rolled-up mattress held by Zuko as he was making grunting noises as she began to speak. As I said, we have a new plan, but you have to be in the courtyard in an hour. Karai told him, but the door was about to open. Karai put on the act as it looked like she had Zuko pinned to the wall. Your time is up, the first ninja replied as he and his partner walked in and pulled Zuko away. Karai watched as they walked off. After some distance was gained, she used her agility to jump from the floor up to the second floor and began to follow. As Zuko was being dragged by the 2 ninja, he demanded to know where he was going. What are you doing? Where are you taking me? He demanded, as Karai continued to discreetly follow from the second floor to make sure nothing happened. Zuko was thrown into a room that only had a chair at the center. I didn't do anything wrong. Come on Zuko, we all know that's a lie. A new voice spoke up from the corner of the cell, causing Zuko to look with wide eyes. My. Karai heard it from above and was surprised as well. Pissed. Karai heard that noise coming from an empty cell next to her. Karai. Pissed. She looked in surprise to see none other than Ty Lee hiding behind a semi-open door. Karai's eyes widened before she quickly came in, covered Ty Lee's mouth and pulled the door shut. She held Ty Lee close as she kept her hand clasped over her mouth to look outside to make sure no one saw them. Acne, she saw the coast was clear. She let her friend go. Hi Karai. The pink-clad girl greeted with an uneasy smile. Ty Lee. Western Air Temple. Aang sat down with Raph and Toph as April handed them some food. The Duke, Haru, and Teo were off exploring more of the temple and said they would get some food later. Hey, you guys seen Leo or Katara? Aang asked. Leo's probably off training, and Katara probably just throwing a temper tantrum again. Toph scoffed as she held her feet off. You guys do know something's off with Katara, right? April asked. Oh, we've noticed. That hothead. Raph stated, causing Aang, April, and even Toph to look at him in mild surprise. I hate it when someone else reminds me of me. I'm worried about her, Aang said. She's just been so angry these last few days. I've seen her angry before, but not like this. No sooner did Toph set her feet down that she felt something with her seismic sense that made her gasp, getting everyone's attention. Leo and Katara are fighting in the courtyard. What? Aang questioned. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go. Raph exclaimed as he got up, followed by April, and Aang as Toph led the way. Aang had a feeling that Katara's anger might boil over, but he didn't think that she'd just go out and fight Leo like this. Meanwhile, in the courtyard of the temple, Leo used only one sword to parry and block the continuous strikes from Katara's water whip. She froze her whip and angrily rushed at Leo with it. He blocked it with his sword before jumping back. Fight back, Katara exclaimed. Why won't you fight back? Because you're my friend, Leo told her. I won't hurt you, but I am going to defend myself. Katara's anger only seemed to grow as she rushed at Leo, who once again blocked her strike. She tried to punch him, but he caught her wrist and threw off his shoulder, causing her to roll on the ground. "You can't beat me, Katara," Leo said, but she didn't seem to believe it as she stood up. "Guys, stop," they heard as both Leo and Katara saw Aang rushing towards them with Raph, Toph, and April behind them. "Stop fighting." Leo held his hand out. "Aang, stay back," Leo stated, keeping his eyes on Katara. "All of you stay back. But you two are friends. We shouldn't be fighting." Aang tried to reason with him. "Trust me, Aang. I know what I'm doing," Leo said as Katara took out all the water from her satchels and bent 2 large water whips around her arms and rushed to Leo, who was forced to unsheath his second katana as he blocked the many strikes Katara relentlessly threw at him. Aang and April were both about to step in, but Toph held her arm out in front of both of them. "Hold on a minute, guys. Why would we be holding on?" April questioned. "One of them is going to get hurt. I may not be able to see, but I can tell what's really going on," Toph stated as she gestured towards the fight. Leo was mostly using defensive tactics against Katara. He didn't make any move to attack her directly. "Yeah, take a good look." Raph seemed to catch on as well. Leo jumped over Katara to avoid a snap from her water whips. As he landed, he turned to her as Katara was taking several deep breaths. Aang saw what was happening. "She's tired." "Exactly," Raph said. "Leo's wearing her down. You guys have tried to talk to her, but she just doesn't listen. This same kind of thing happened to me. If Leo can get Katara to burn off some of her energy, maybe she might be calm enough to listen." Aang was a bit surprised. This was the first time he saw any of the Trolls try this kind of tactic. He looked closer and saw that Leo was still mostly using defense. He could only hope that Leo truly knew what he was doing. Katara relentlessly threw out her water towards Leo as she sent multiple water strikes and ice blades towards Leo, who blocked them by spinning his katanas in front of him. He saw that Katara had already burnt off most of her energy, so he decided to end it. He rushed forward with his swords. Leo slashed towards Katara, who desperately tried to block him, but he sliced and moved faster than she could. With several slices, her water whips fell apart, as did her satchels. Katara's eyes widened at how fast Leo was able to do this. She fell to her knees in exhaustion. "Your own anger defeats you, Katara," Leo told her as he put his katanas away. "Now, are you willing to actually talk instead of keeping all of this bottled in?" He offered a hand up. Katara tried to regain her breath as she saw Leo's hand extended to her. She had considered taking it, but another flash of red appeared in her eyes as a surge of aggressive energy entered her mind. Before Leo could even react, Katara had bent a small water puddle around her right hand, which formed a set of claws on her nails. She yelled in rage as she slashed at him. Slash! Asterisk. Leo screamed as he fell backwards quite a bit, holding his right side where he had been slashed. Katara looked ready to strike again, but before she did, a rock pillar erupted from the ground to knock her back. Toph stood in front of Leo in an earthbending stance. Before Katara could respond, Raph grabbed her wrist and gave her a punch to knock her back. "Have you lost it?" Toph practically screamed at Katara. "Katara, what the shell is your problem?" Raph exclaimed in anger as well, pointing a finger at Katara. Katara had a look that seemed equivalent to that of a rabid animal when she saw Toph and Raph standing in her way. Her eyes fell onto Leo as April quickly came to him. "Leo, are you okay?" April asked as she tried to help him. Leo grunted as he held the side where a large cut was seen, blood coming out of it as he tried to hold it in. Katara saw the blood leak and it would seem her look began to lessen. She turned to see the expression on Aang's face as he looked at her. His face was one of shock, disbelief, confusion, and even a bit of fear. The look from Aang's eyes seemed to cause something in Katara's mind to snap. Her eyes widened as the rage in her vanished. She saw her right hand, which still had the ice claw she made. It had blood on it, Leo's blood. Katara gasped, realizing what she had just done. Everyone gave her the same kind of look Aang did, save for Raph, which was one of great anger. She took a few steps back before turning around and running away from the scene. Katara ran as fast as she could as it all came to her. Leo was like a brother to her and she made him bleed. He was only trying to help her and she still hurt him. As she thought of all of this, tears began to flow from her eyes as she continued to run. But it wasn't just that, it was the way Aang looked at her. She had never seen him look that way at her before, and it caused her heart to break. The boiling rock. The warden walked into the interrogation room where the 2-foot ninja held Chit-Sang upside down in his chair. "How is he?" "He said he's ready to talk." One ninja responded as they threw Chit-Sang back upright. Chit-Sang regained his breath, as this was a very unpleasant experience. "Have you had enough time to think about what I asked?" the warden asked. "Yes," Chit-Sang breathed. "And, you're right." Chit-Sang relented. There was another person involved in the escape plan. "Who?" "It's a guy who's disguised like a foot ninja, only he's not a foot ninja." Chit-Sang said. "He's the mastermind. He came up with the plan." The warden smiled as he patted Chit-Sang's head and left. Zuko sat in the one chair with Mai leaning against the sidewall. "How did you know I was here?" "The foot are here, you idiot." Mai told him. "The moment they saw your face, what did you think would happen?" Zuko face-palmed. "Is Shredder here?" "No, he isn't," Mai replied. This caused Zuko to breathe a sigh of relief. "Don't think that means you're not in trouble," Mai said as she held out a certain note. "All I get is a letter. You could have at least looked me in the eye when you ripped out my heart." "I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to," Mai angrily questioned before she walked behind Zuko and began to read it out loud. "Dear Mai, I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but I'm leaving." "Stop," Zuko stated. "This isn't about us, it's about the Fire Nation." "Thanks Zuko, that makes me feel all better," Mai said in obvious sarcasm as she threw the note at the back of the head. Zuko stood up. "Mai, I never meant to hurt you, but I had to leave to save my country and the rest of the planet." Mai looked at him for a minute. "Shredder says you and Karai killed your dad. Do you really believe that?" Zuko asked. Mai sighed. "No, I don't. Shredder is the one who did it," Zuko told her. "He's completely overthrown the Fire Nation. The only reason he's keeping Azula around is just to keep it looking like a partnership, rather than a dictatorship." "I knew it," Mai stated. "That's why I left," Zuko said. "To keep you safe." This got Mai's attention. "You know what he's like. If he saw you as an enemy, I couldn't live with myself if he did something to you because of me." Mai looked towards Zuko with a soft expression. Meanwhile, Karai was having a similar situation with Ty Lee in their secluded area. "Ty Lee, what are you doing here?" "Well," Ty Lee rubbed the back of her neck. "Shredder said that Zuko was here, so he sent Azula, Mai, Hun, and I with a couple of other guys to see if that was true." "Is my father here as well?" Karai asked. "No, and I'm really glad he isn't," Ty Lee replied. "But, what are you doing here?" "I'm sorry, but I cannot tell you," Karai told her, causing Ty Lee to look in disappointment. "Ty Lee, when we last spoke, you told me to follow my heart. That is what I am doing right now. That is why Zuko and I left. We no longer follow the foot and we are trying to save this world." Ty Lee looked towards Karai. "I really am glad you're following your heart, it's just," she seemed quite upset. "You are wondering why Zuko and I didn't take you and Mai with us." Karai finished. "Why didn't you? Why did you just leave?" Ty Lee asked. I thought we were friends." Karai looked toward her with sympathy. "We are friends, Ty Lee, that's why I didn't bring you as well." This caught Ty Lee's attention. "This world thinks of Zuko and myself as criminals, and my father is doing what he can to hunt us down. I did not want that for you. You left, to protect me." Karai looked outside. "Ty Lee, I'm sorry but I have to go." She was about to leave, but Ty Lee grabbed her wrist and pulled herself in a hug, completely surprising Karai. "You're a good person, Karai. Don't forget, I'll always be your friend." Karai was taken aback by this, but gave a quick hug before pushing her away. "I need to go. If you spot me while in the presence of Azula or Hun, do what you have to." Karai then walked out the door, leaving Ty Lee both upset and happy at the same time. Meanwhile, in Suki's cell, the aforementioned Kyoshi warrior was practicing many of her techniques with a series of punches and kicks. She heard her door open and saw Sokka walk in. "Sokka, what's going on?" Suki asked. "I don't have much time," Sokka said as he looked outside the hole. "If I'm seen with you the guards might think something's up." He turned back to Suki. "The Trolls and I just got done talking to my dad and the others." "That's great. Yeah, and we're escaping today, on the gondola," Sokka informed. That caught Suki by surprise. "What? We came up with the plan together," Sokka began. We're gonna commandeer the gondola, and we're gonna take a hostage with us so they don't cut the lines. He put his hands on her shoulders almost excitedly. Suki placed her hands and removed Sokka's from her shoulders. We'll never make it onto the gondola, guards and foot soldiers are crawling all over the place. Mikey already had an idea for that. Sokka said. He said we'd need a distraction, that's why we're gonna start a prison riot. Suki didn't seem all that convinced. Okay, let's say by some miracle and we make it on the gondola. The warden will still just cut the lines, even if we have a captive. Not if the warden is the captive. Sokka informed. But, isn't he just a figurehead for the foot? Suki questioned. Yeah, but the foot are still gonna need him if they're going to maintain control of the prison, right? At least that's what Don said. Sokka replied. There was a knock on the door. Sokka, we need to go. Karai told him from outside. Be right there. Sokka turned to Suki who gave him a hug. I'll find you before we start the riot. Sokka exited the cell and joined Karai. Is everything all set? Karai asked. Yeah, Don and Mikey are just telling Casey about the plan too. We're gonna get this thing started in 5 minutes. Sokka answered. Let us hope that nothing goes wrong in that time frame. Karai hoped. Elsewhere in the prison, Mikey and Don were still disguised as foot soldiers as Mikey knocked on the door to Casey's cell. Cowabunga. Mikey whispered in code. Goongala. Casey whispered back from the other side as Don opened the door and the two entered. Okay, what's the plan guys? Casey asked. Pretty simple. Don informed. We're gonna let everyone outside in about 5 minutes. Then when everyone's out we're gonna start a riot, a big one. Count me in, Casey said with a large grin. Then we're gonna grab the warden and bail on the gondola. That's it, Mikey said. Alright, I'm ready whenever you guys are. Casey said with a nod. We'll see you outside in about 5 minutes. Don said as he and Mikey left the cell. The two disguised turtles walked out of Casey's cell when they were suddenly approached by 2 Fire Nation guards. Hey, ninja guys, the warden wants to see you. One guard stated. Why? Mikey asked. I don't know, I didn't ask. The guard replied. Can we try another time? Don tried as he and Mikey began to slowly walk away. How does tomorrow sound? He wants to see you. Now, the guard insisted as more guards stopped the disguised turtles for sneaking away. Okay. Mikey held his hands up innocently. Couldn't hurt, right? Outside, on the tower of the prison, the warden was standing in front of a line of at least 10-foot ninja as Don and Mikey were escorted towards the line by a few guards. Fortunately, they still had their masks on. Put them in the line up. The warden ordered as Mikey and Don were shoved to the line. Mikey tried to hide behind one ninja, only for the ninja to nudge him back. What is this about? One ninja asked the warden. One of you is an imposter who thought he could fool me. Don and Mikey discreetly looked to each other nervously. But now, that person is gonna be in a lot of trouble. Chitsang was escorted onto the scene. The 2 turtles recognized him and knew this could spell trouble. Who is it? The warden asked. Mikey looked extremely nervous as he sweated underneath his mask, while Don was ready to spring into action the second things went south. Fortunately, that moment would never come. That's him, warden. He's the imposter. Chitsang pointed to a completely separate ninja, the same one who bullied him the previous day. What? The ninja exclaimed. The warden smirked as 2 guards slowly approached the accused ninja. I am not. He grabbed Chitsang by the shirt as the 2 guards began to pull him away. He's lying. He's a liar. Chitsang smirked, finally getting payback on the ninja who bullied him, before he turned to the 2 disguised turtles and gave him a wink. Mikey gave a sigh of relief, as did Don. The ninja was taken to an interrogation room. His mask was removed to reveal a bald man, as he was strapped to a chair and being interrogated by the warden with 2 guards behind him. How many times do I have to say it wasn't me? The ninja angrily exclaimed. Save your breath, I know you've been working together. The warden looked the ninja in the face. You threw Chitsang in the very cooler they used to escape, it was all part of your plan. Oh please. The ninja scoffed. If we wanted to get someone out of this prison, they'd already be out. We're masters of stealth, you idiot. Before the warden could reply, the door opened from behind. Sir, there's someone to see you. The guard pointed to the door. Who told you to interrupt me? The warden angrily exclaimed, turning to the doorway. His look vanished before he and the guards bowed. "We did," Azula said as she, Hun, and Hama stood in the doorway with the elite ninja outside. "Princess Azula, and Hun sir," the warden said as he got up. It is an honor to welcome you to the Fire Nation's most exemplary prison. I did not realize you were coming." "It is your honor," Hun said with a smirk. Hama saw the ninja strapped to the chair. "And who might this be?" she asked. "He is an imposter who was involved in a recent and feeble escape attempt," the warden answered. "It wasn't me," the ninja stated. "Hun, sir, you know I would never do something like that." "Quiet you," the warden pointed to him. "Don't bother," Hun stated. "He's not an imposter." The warden looked confused as Hun, Azula, and Hama began to walk out. "How do you know?" "Because we were sent here to deal with the ones who were really causing you trouble," Hun replied. "Come on," Azula told them. "It's lunchtime and I'm in the mood for turtle soup." Meanwhile, Karai and Sokka, still disguised as guards, walked into the controls for the cells where one guard was manning it. "We have new orders," the disguised Karai said. "Release the prisoners into the yard." "But we're in the middle of lockdown," the guard said. "Oh okay," Sokka began as he and Karai began to walk away. "We'll just tell the warden you said that." The guard looked scared. "I'm sure he'll be glad to hear about you undermining his authority." "What's your name again?" "Wait," the scared guard stopped them. Don't tell the warden, I'm just a little confused." "I understand," Karai began. "The orders don't make sense, but the warden is acting a little irrational the moment. So it would likely be best for us not to question us and do what he says," she said in a friendly manner. The guard seemed convinced. "Yeah, you're right." He began to pull the levers. "We're letting them out." All the cell doors in the entire prison opened as all the prisoners began to exit. Suki's door opened and she exited, Casey's door opened next and he ran outside. The last one to open was for the shared cell for Splinter, Usagi, and Hakoda. "I believe our time is now," Master Splinter said as he, Usagi, and Hakoda ran out with the other prisoners. Outside in the courtyard, all the prisoners have gathered, as did all the heroes planning to escape. Sokka and Karai ditched their helmets, and retrieved their respective swords. Don and Mikey even threw away their foot disguises and recovered their weapons as they all met up with Hakoda, Casey, Splinter, Suki, and Usagi. "Alright, this is it. We have to start a riot," Don stated. "How are we supposed to do that?" Usagi asked. Casey looked around and saw a rather large, muscular, bald prisoner with a scar and smirked with an idea. "Leave that to me." He ran up and knocked down the prisoner. "Hey!" The prisoner turned around. "What did you do that for? That hurt my feelings." Casey was very confused. "Ain't you mad at me?" "Well, normally I would be, but I've been learning to control my anger." Sokka, Hakoda, Don, Karai, and Mikey gaped in disbelief as Usagi and Suki looked to each other in confusion. "Well, this isn't working," Sokka said. "I'm certain we can still find a way to create chaos," Splinter said. "Hey green boys," Chitsang exclaimed as he looked to Don and Mikey, getting the whole group's attention. "You two are lucky I didn't rat you out, but my generosity comes with a price." "Who is this?" Usagi asked. "Don't ask," Suki replied. Chitsang spoke to the group. "I know you're planning another escape attempt, and I want in." Mikey had a grin on his face as an idea came to mind. "Actually, we're trying to escape right now, but we're gonna need a riot. Do you know how to start one?" Chitsang scoffed. "A prison riot, please." He walked forward, grabbed a random prisoner and held him over his head as he addressed a massive crowd of prisoners. "Hey, riot." Less than a second later, a riot started as multiple fireballs were shot out into the air and the courtyard erupted into chaos. "You see, we found a way," Master Splinter said with a slight chuckle. "Impressive," Hakoda observed. "Very," Karai agreed. "Is he a friend of yours?" Usagi asked Don. "He is now," the purple turtle said. "I love this guy," Mikey exclaimed in joy as he and Casey high-fived while Suki and Sokka just looked at each other in confusion. "Forget about controlling my anger," the prisoner who Casey pushed exclaimed. "Let's riot." He too joined the fray. The entire courtyard as in chaos as nearly every prisoner attacked each other with either fists or fireballs. They tackled each other, tossed each other, punched, wrestled, you name it. It even created a large dust cloud. The warden and several guards and foot soldiers saw this from the tower. Who let these prisoners into the yard? The warden exclaimed in anger. This is supposed to be a lockdown. The very same guard who was at the controls of the cells, who released the prisoners meanwhile was trying to shimmy away as fast as he could. Inside the prison, Zuko and Mai were still in the same room as before when a guard quickly came in. "Ma'am, there's a riot going on. I'm here to protect you," he told Mai. "I don't need any protection," Mai told the guard. Zuko gave an amused chuckle. "Believe me, she doesn't. I'm sorry, but I'm under direct orders from your uncle to make sure nothing happens." Zuko saw this as his chance. He shot a fireball at the guard's feet, forcing him to jump back protectively towards Mai as Zuko tried to run out. "Get off of me." Mai threw the guard away as she tried to go after Zuko, but he closed the door with her inside and locked it. They shared eye contact for a moment. "I'm sorry," Zuko said before running away. Courtyard. The riot was still going on as several guards tried to subdue the prisoners, but it only seemed to add fuel to the fire, literally. Sokka, Don, Mikey, Splinter, Suki, Karai, Hakoda, Casey, Chitsang, and Usagi were all at a wall with a clear view of the tower where several foot soldiers were. Zuko threw a guard down as he joined them. "What took you so long?" Mikey asked. "Don't ask," Zuko replied. "Well, all we have to do now is grab the warden and make a break for the gondola," Don stated. "And how do we do that?" Zuko asked. Sokka looked to him with an unsure look. "I'm not sure." Zuko and Karai both looked in surprise. "What?" Karai questioned. "I thought you guys came up the plan together," Zuko exclaimed. "We didn't have time to work out the details," Mikey whined. "Plus you said it was okay not to think everything through," Sokka whined. "Maybe not everything, but this is kind of important." Zuko face-palmed. "How could you have not come up with a full plan with all that's on the line?" Karai angrily questioned. Before anyone could say anything else, Chitsang got the group's attention. "Hey fellas. I think that girl, Rat, and Bunny are all taking care of it." The group looked towards the riot and saw with surprise at what he was talking about. Master Splinter ran towards the chaos with both Suki and Usagi right behind him. He jumped up onto the crowd and literally began to run on their heads, as did Usagi and Suki. The three ran with quick speed towards the tower. Once they made it to the wall, Splinter literally began to run up it as Usagi jumped with his own rabbit feet straight to the platform as Suki climbed up, grabbing the railing from below with her feet and swinging herself up, and Splinter made it as well from running on the wall. They were immediately greeted by a foot soldier with dual katanas. Master Splinter thrusted his palm to send the ninja flying to the other side of the platform. He grabbed both of the katanas and tossed them to his allies behind him. Suki caught one, as did Usagi. 4 more foot ninja ran out towards them to try and stop the escaping trio. Suki ran forward, used her newly acquired katana to block a spear strike from one ninja before sweeping him off his feet with her legs. Usagi used the back of his own katana to knock out the foot soldier attacking him as Splinter jumped towards the 2 remaining ninja and used his feet to slam their heads into each other as he landed. Splinter then cupped his hands together as Suki jumped towards him. He caught her feet and gave her a boost up to the next platform before doing the same to Usagi. Splinter then ran up the wall to follow them. The warden could only look in complete shock as just these 3 individuals were able to quickly ascend to the same platform he was on. The 2-foot ninja near him ran towards Suki and Usagi as they made it up. They clashed their respective swords with the ninja as Splinter came up and delivered precise neck chops to the ninja, knocking them out before running straight at the warden. He tried to punch Splinter, but he caught the warden by the wrist before delivering a pressure point right to the warden's neck. What are, he didn't get a chance to finish as the pressure point knocked him out cold. "How'd you do that?" Suki asked the rat sensei. "Pressure points," Master Splinter answered as Usagi picked up the unconscious warden and put him over his shoulder. "You have got to teach me that sometime," Suki said with an impressed smile as Splinter gave a slight chuckle. They saw everyone else, Don, Sokka, Zuko, Mikey, Casey, Hakoda, Chitsang, and Karai all catch up with them. "We have the warden. Now let's go," Usagi stated. Everyone in the group, with exception of Karai, had to catch their breath. "Very impressive," Karai observed. "You said it," Don, Mikey, and Sokka all said at the same time. Master Splinter was in the lead as he, Don, Zuko, Mikey, Sokka, Casey, Karai, Hakoda, Usagi, Suki, and Chit-Sang ran towards the gondola station with Chit-Sang holding the unconscious warden. "We're almost there," Usagi stated as the group was getting closer. They however had their path blocked by at least 6-foot ninja. Zuko stood up front. "Back off. We've got the warden." "Yes, we can see that," one ninja said. "So, you gonna let us through or what?" Don questioned. "Why would we do that?" Another ninja questioned. Sokka looked confused. Because we've got the warden. You all know by now that he is merely a figurehead." A separate ninja informed. "Yeah, but you need him to keep the prison in control," Mikey stated. "As you can see, this prison's already falling apart under his watch." The first ninja told them. "The warden is expendable, and you are not leaving this place alive." Sokka, Mikey, and Don could only look in disbelief while the rest of the group glared. "Now what are we gonna do?" Suki asked. "We do not have time for this," Karai stated as she ran forward to engage the ninja. She unsheathed both her katanas as she sliced and slashed to knock down all 6-foot ninja in less than 2 seconds. Don, Mikey, Zuko, and Splinter weren't too shocked by this display of swordsmanship, but Suki, Sokka, Usagi, Casey, Hakoda, and Chit-Sang looked surprised themselves. "She's good," Hakoda observed. "You have no idea," Zuko told him. "Let's go," Karai ordered as she led the group past the unconscious ninjas into the stationed gondola. Don was the first to open the door. "Everyone in, quickly," Don ordered. Mikey was the first to enter, followed by Sokka, Casey, Splinter, Karai, Suki, Hakoda, Usagi, and Chit-Sang with the unconscious warden. Don came in next with Zuko being the one to run to the lever. Zuko pushed on the lever, causing the gondola to begin its trip up the line. Everyone looked out the window as they saw Zuko beginning to kick the lever. He turned around however and saw a few Fire Nation guards and foot soldiers running towards him. Zuko gave one more mighty kick to knock the lever clean off before running towards the edge and the ascending gondola. Zuko jumped straight up to avoid a series of fireballs and shurikens thrown at him. It looked like he might not make it, but Karai reached and caught his hand. Don came over as well and they helped Zuko inside. "What were you doing?" Don questioned. "I'm making it so they can't stop us," Zuko said as he stood up inside the gondola. "Way to think ahead," Sokka said in impressed tone. "That was crazy, Scarface," Casey commented with a smirk. "I'm liking ya more and more." He gave him a congratulatory noogie. "Well, we did it," Mikey stated. "We made it onto the gondola, so now it's just smooth sailing." "I suspect you are becoming overconfident, my son," Master Splinter told Mikey. "We may not be free yet." "You are correct," Usagi confirmed as he looked back to the main tower. "Look." The whole group saw what he was pointing to. "Oh shell," Don cussed. Standing at the base, glaring up towards the gondola was none other than Azula, Hun, Hama, and the 4 elite ninja, as well as a reluctant Ty Lee. "It's Hun," Casey glared. "My sister is there too." Zuko glared as well. "So are the foot elite," Karai confirmed. "But who's that other one?" Hakoda asked. "That woman in blue." "Don't know," Sokka shrugged. "Never seen her before." Karai tried to look. "She is wearing uniform of the foot, but I do not recognize her." Azula looked towards the gondola for a moment before she took a pair of handcuffs from a guard and propelled herself straight up with a boost of blue fire. Hama performed a similar action as she formed 2 large water whips around her arms from her water satchels, which she used to grab the cable and propel herself upward. Ty Lee and the elite ninja jumped onto the cable of the gondola and began to literally run on the wire just as Azula used the handcuffs she borrowed to catch the cable and propel herself forward with her firebending. Hama was quickly on the cable and bent water around her feet and the cable forming ice, before using her waterbending to slide straight at the gondola. Hun stayed back as he didn't have any way to get on the gondola himself. But he smirked. This should be entertaining. As Azula, Ty Lee, Hama, and the foot elite were quickly catching up to the gondola, Suki glared towards the elite as they were the ones who previously kidnapped her and fellow Kyoshi warriors. "This is a rematch I've been waiting for." "Me too," Zuko said in agreement. "The same goes for me." Karai agreed as well. "We shall handle this." Master Splinter said as Don, Mikey, Sokka, Zuko, Karai, and Usagi began to climb up to the roof of the gondola. The rest of you will stay here, he told Hakoda, Casey, and Chit-Sang, who nodded in agreement. As the enemy came ever closer, the heroes all made it to the roof of the moving gondola. Zuko made a firebending stance, Don drew his staff, Mikey pulled out his nunchucks, Karai drew her dual katanas, Sokka drew his space sword, Suki and Usagi each held their respective katanas, and Master Splinter simply made a combat stance. The first ones to make it were Ty Lee and the Foot Elite as they landed on the backside of the gondola, facing Suki, Splinter, and Usagi. Meanwhile Azula and Hama made it to the front facing Karai, Zuko, Don, Mikey, and Sokka. Hama gave a chuckle. Only two of you. I was hopping to get all of the turtles. Do we know you? Don asked. Oh, don't tell me you've all forgotten me, after our little, full moon, episode. You all threw me in a cage, just like my brothers and sisters were all those years ago. Most of the group seemed confused, but Mikey recognized the tone in her voice. He got a good look in her eyes, and his widened as he recognized the look. Hama, Mikey exclaimed, much to the shock of Don and Sokka. In the flesh, Hama took an almost seductive pose to show off her new body. Who's Hama? Zuko questioned. Short answer. She's a waterbender and a total psychopath. Don answered. But she was an old lady the last time we saw her. Sokka pointed out. There's no way this is the same Hama. I assure you Sokka, I am. Hama told him. So tell me, where's your pretty sister? I'd love to spend some more quality time with her. That earned a glare from Sokka. How are you even here? And like this? Mikey questioned. It's thanks to an old friend of yours, Dr. Baxter Stockman. Hama reveled. Don's eyes widened. Let me guess. He cloned you a new body and transferred your mind from your old one into this one. Bingo. Hama confirmed. I may not be able to bloodbend right now, but I'm no longer the same old hag you fought before. I've become a warrior of the foot, worthy of serving the Shredder, and I will prove how worthy I am. She finished with an evil chuckle. As this exchange took place, Karai shared a glance with Ty Lee, who had a look of uncertainty on her face. I'm not going to lie, Karai. Azula began, getting her attention. I've been looking forward to this. Karai glared at Azula. As have I. She held her katanas as Azula took a firebending stance. Zuko spoke to his sister. Azula, I have a question. How stupid are you? What? Azula angrily questioned. You really think the Shredder is trying to help the Fire Nation? You're many things, but you are not an idiot. Use your head, Azula. Zuko exclaimed. You think I'm going to listen to you after what you did to our father? Azula questioned. That wasn't me. I've had enough. Azula shouted as she shot a blue fire at Zuko, which he intercepted with his own fireball, beginning the fight. Hama formed two water whips at her arms as she lunged them towards Sokka. Sokka blocked one whip with his sword as Don twirled his staff to intercept the other whip. Suki used her katana to block the axe strike of one elite ninja as she tried to palm thrust to his face, but he jumped back. The elite ninja with the trident tried to attack her from behind, but Usagi intercepted it with his katana as he began to parry weapons with the ninja. Mikey twirled his nunchucks defensively to keep the remaining two elite ninja at bay as they tried to come at him with the staff and double-bladed sword respectively. As this all happened, Ty Lee just stood there and watched with a conflicted look on her face. Azula shot another fireball towards Zuko. Karai was able to slice it down with one of her katanas before thrusting her sword at Azula, forcing her to limbo back close to the edge. Hama froze the water in her right hand and sent out several circular ice blades towards Don and Sokka, who struggled to intercept all of them with staff and sword respectively. Hama went on the offensive with a series of icicles, but Master Splinter came in and quickly took them all down with multiple quick chops from only his bare hands. Hama could only look in shock before Splinter came in and delivered a kick to Hama to send her reeling back into Azula. The two stumbled but regained their footing so that they wouldn't fall off the gondola. Usagi, Suki, and Mikey continued to battle back the Foot Elite, and it seemed like an evenly matched fight as they all parried their respective weapons. Mikey ducked under an axe slice from one elite ninja before kicking him back. Problem was, he slammed into the distracted Ty Lee. Mikey's eyes widened as it looked like she would fall off the gondola. Ty Lee was about to scream, but Mikey quickly caught her hand before she fell. "I got ya," he told her. Ty Lee looked surprised but grateful. "Thanks." She saw something behind him. "Behind you." Mikey saw the elite with the trident trying to impale him, but in one quick motion, Mikey threw Ty Lee straight up, where she landed on top of the gondola's metal extension safely, and Mikey quickly used the chain of his nunchucks to block the trident from the elite ninja before he pulled back his feet and kicked the elite away. Mikey then jumped up to the metal extension to meet Ty Lee face to face. "Thanks," he said. "Yeah, now we're even," she said with an honest smile. "I don't think we've been formally introduced," Mikey said as the battles continued below. "It's Ty Lee, right?" She nodded. "I'm Mikey." "Mikey. That's a nice name," she said with a smile. "Yeah, you seem pretty nice too," Mikey said before he turned serious. "Too nice to be hanging around whack jobs like Azula and Hama, and definitely not the kind of chick to work for someone like Shredder." Ty Lee once again had a conflicted look on her face. "Well, it's just, you're friends with Zuko and Karai, aren't ya?" Mikey asked, to which Ty Lee nodded. "So why not come with us?" This caught Ty Lee by surprise. "Seriously, you seem like a good person. You don't have to work for the bad guys." As Mikey tried to talk with Ty Lee, Master Splinter was facing both Azula and Hama at the same time as he used a palm thrust to disperse a blue fireball and jump over a water whip. He landed a kick on Hama before grabbing Azula by her wrist as she tried to shoot a fireball at him and tossing her over to Hama. Splinter jumped up toward them as he landed in between. He grabbed them both by the wrist and slammed their heads into each other, causing them both to reel back. As Splinter held back both Hama and Azula, Dawn, Sokka, Zuko, Karai, Usagi, and Suki were getting the upper hand on the elite ninja as they outnumbered them 6-4. The elite were on the defensive end as they fought back the swords and staff strikes, but Zuko was the one who kept them back the most with his firebending. Hun saw all of this through a spyglass back on the main tower. He did not like the fact that his side was losing as he growled. He turned to the guards and ninja. "Cut the line," Hun ordered. "What?" a guard questioned. "But the warden is still up there, plus the princess and..." Hun punched the guard away with his large fist. He then turned to the rest. "I said cut the line. Now," Hun exclaimed. A few moments later, a selection of ninja got a pair of large metal rods and jammed them into the wheel containing the suspension line, in an attempt to slow it down. Hun smirked. "Let's see if those freaks survive this." Back on the gondola, Master Splinter continued to hold back both Hama and Azula as everyone else surrounded the elite ninja. But the gondola came to a screeching halt. It rocked back and forth and caused most of the people on the roof to lose their balance. Ty Lee held her grip, but Mikey looked like he was ready to fall. Fortunately, Ty Lee grabbed his wrist and pulled him back up. Sokka looked ready to slide off, but Karai caught him to keep him on board as everyone tried to maintain his or her balance. "What the shell was that?" Mikey questioned. Ty Lee looked past Mikey back to the main tower. "They're about to cut the line," she exclaimed. It was mostly to Karai and Mikey as they and their friends looked in shock. However, the elite ninja, Azula, and Hama heard this as well, thinking this warning was directed to them as Azula saw a few guards with a large saw cutting away at the line. Azula looked and saw an incoming gondola from the station at the other side and smirked. "Then it's time to leave." She propelled herself straight up with plumes of blue fire. "Goodbye, Zuko," she said to her brother as she landed on the moving gondola. Hama smirked towards the turtles triumphantly as she also propelled herself up with water from her feet like a springboard. The elite ninja vanished in a plume of smoke and reappeared on the other gondola as well. Ty Lee simply performed a long flip as she landed with the villains on the moving gondola. Ty Lee made eye contact one last time with Karai and Mikey before a sad look formed on her face as the heroes got back into their gondola. "How come we ain't moving?" Casey questioned as they all jumped in. "They're cutting the line," Mikey exclaimed. "We're gonna fall. I hope this thing floats." Hakota hoped as they all looked down to the boiling water below. Dawn, can this thing float?" Sokka asked the purple-clad turtle. "Best guess, no." Back on the gondola station, the two guards with the saw had almost cut their way through the entire line. Hun smirked, but his smirk vanished when he saw a pair of knives hit the guards and pin them to the wall. "What the hell are you doing?" Hun questioned to the knife thrower. "Saving the jerk who dumped me." Mai answered. Hun growled before he ran towards her. Mai let a knife fall from her sleeve before she jumped up and kicked Hun in the face and sent a series of blades straight towards a series of oncoming guards, pinning them towards a nearby wall. A few foot ninja tried to rush her, but she backflipped out of the way and threw many blades at them to knock their weapons out of their hands before coming in with several kicks and punches to knock them all down. Mai jumped back to avoid a flying punch from Hun. As she landed, she kicked up a stray katana to her right hand as she used her left to throw a knife straight at Hun, which grazed his face, giving him a cut below his left eye. Hun glared before he picked up his own stray katana. He roared as he charged and tried to slash at Mai, who blocked it with the katana she was using. Mai slashed at him, but he blocked it with his own blade. As he made a horizontal swing, she ducked under it and pulled both her feet back and slammed them into Hun's chest to send him tumbling back into the line, knocking the rods out of the wheel, and thereby get the gondola to move again. Everyone on the now moving gondola looked in surprise. Not just at the fact the gondola was moving, but that someone else was helping them. Who is that? Usagi questioned. Zuko got a good look as the woman he loved glanced in his direction. It's Mai. What is she doing? Azula angrily questioned as she, Hama, the elite ninja, and Ty Lee saw Mai fight off the foot soldiers. Someone's got a problem with authority, it looks like. Hama observed. Mai, Ty Lee whispered. Before anything else was said, the four elite ninja vanished again in a plume of smoke only to reappear surrounding Mai. She sighed, as she knew she couldn't beat them, so she simply raised her hands. The gondola had successfully made it to the station on the outer rim of the volcano. The door opened as Dawn, Sokka, Zuko, Casey, Hakoda, Usagi, Mikey, Karai, and Suki ran out. Splinter was the last one as he saw Chit Sang still carry the unconscious warden. Splinter pointed inside the gondola, giving Chit Sang the signal to toss him in and leave him there. Okay, we made it out. Now what? Suki questioned. Zuko stopped and briefly looked back at the prison in the middle of the boiling lake. Zuko, what are you doing? Sokka asked. My sister was on that island. Zuko stated as the group looked towards him. Yeah, so was that whack job Hama, along with Hun and some super pissed off ninja, so let's get going. Mikey urged. What I mean is she must have come here somehow. Zuko said for clarification. Zuko is right, Karai exclaimed, getting everyone's attention as she looked down to the docks below. That is our way out of here. Everyone looked down and saw the foot helicopter on the docks. Casey smirked. So, we're busting out of jail and getting a free chopper. Sweet. Boiling rock. The elite ninja held Mai tightly as Azula faced her on the other end. Ty Lee was close to Azula while Hun and Hama were a distance away. Hama saw the smirk on Hun's face. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Yep, he told her, causing Hama to smirk as well. Azula glared at Mai. Leave us alone. The elite ninja nodded as they walked away. It was a brief moment of silence. I never expected this from you. Azula stated. During this tense moment, Ty Lee held her mouth with quivering eyes as she remembered something Mikey told her. Seriously, you seem like a good person. You don't have to work for the bad guys. The only thing I don't understand is why. Why would you do it? You know the consequences. Azula told Mai. Mai looked directly into Azula's eyes. It's because I'm not a puppet like you. Do you honestly think the Shredder is really helping us? Wake up Azula, he had you pegged for hired help the moment he met you. That earned a look of rage from Azula. You dare, you dare. I am no puppet. Azula was ready to strike Mai, who was ready to fight back. However, before Azula could strike out, Ty Lee quickly came in with a couple of jabs to block Azula's Kai. Mai looked in honest surprise, even Hun and Hama were caught off guard by this. As Azula fell, Ty Lee ran to her best friend. Come on, let's get out of here. Before they could do anything though, Hama quickly bent water around their arms and bodies and froze it, effectively tying them up in ice as they both fell overbound. You two aren't going anywhere. Hama stated as the elite ninja helped up the paralyzed Azula, who had a look of anger and disbelief on her face. Hun kneeled down to the two bound girls. Guess you two are just full of surprises, aren't you? I'm not afraid of Azula, what makes you think I'm afraid of you? Mai questioned to Hun, who still maintained his smirk. Let's see if you can still talk tough as you explain this treachery to the master. Ty Lee had a look of fear in her eyes, and even Mai looked somewhat intimidated. Western Air Temple. It was nighttime as Katara held herself up in her room. She hadn't come out after she hurt Leo. The only one who was present was her so-called mother, still as a transparent spirit coming from a bowl of water. Katara stuttered. I didn't want to hurt him. I don't know what came over me. I just lost control. She held her face. No, this is good, Katara. This forced a look of shock as the waterbender looked toward her, mother. Mom, how can you say that? He was my friend. Friends trust each other, Katara. Kya began. And he made it clear he doesn't trust you. But, he's not the enemy. Katara tried. Shredder is. Is he? Kya asked. What are you talking about? Katara questioned. Your enemy was the Fire Nation. Kya said. It was the Fire Nation who started this war. It was the Fire Nation who wiped out the air nomads. It was the Fire Nation that took me away from you. But, the Shredder defeated the Fire Nation. He had succeeded what everyone else in this world failed to do for the last 100 years. Yeah, but, the Shredder is not the enemy. He is our ally. Kya told her. No, I can't believe that. Katara stated. After what he did to Aang. The Avatar is outdated, an immature child with no real home or family. He couldn't defeat the Fire Nation even if he tried, and he did try many times. Kya said. If he couldn't defeat the primitive Fire Nation, what makes you think he can possibly defeat the Shredder? Katara's eyes trembled as she heard her mother's voice continue to speak like this. No, this can't be true. It can't be. Why fight the Shredder when you can join him? Kya continued to speak in an almost taunting tone. Stop it. Katara stood up as she held her head and tried to cover her ears. You and the Shredder are the same. You belong by his side. Embrace who you are, Katara. Become the killer you were always mean to be. Stop it. Katara used her waterbending to throw away the water and the image of Kya that continued to taunt her. Katara then fell to her knees alone in her room as tears fell from her eyes. No, she cried. I'm not like him. I'm not like him. She repeated. I'm not like him. Katara. She slowly turned to see Aang in the doorway. Katara turned around, as she didn't have the courage to face him. Go away, Aang. He ignored her as he slowly walked in and tried to place a hand on her shoulder. How? She began. How can you be so nice? How can you still let me stay here after what I did? It was an accident, right? Aang tried. No, it wasn't, Katara said, as she didn't even face Aang, her hair covering her tear-filled eyes. He's like a brother and I never wanted to hurt him. Aang looked in sympathy as he kneeled down to her level. You let your anger get out of control. It happens. Katara, you're not alone. You can talk to all of us. We're your friends, your family. She looked towards Aang with teary eyes as she quickly pulled him into a hug and let her tears flow as she buried her head into his chest. Aang did what he could to comfort her. Obviously there were still some issues to work out, but they'd get to that later. Guys. They both looked to see April coming in. I hate to interrupt this, but we've got company. Leo had some bandages wrapped around his wound. It wasn't anything too serious, but it still hurt quite a bit as Raph and Toph helped him outside to the courtyard. April, Aang, and Katara joined them. The moment Raph saw Katara he glared at her, causing her to look away in shame. They all looked up to see a helicopter coming in. Everyone backed up as they saw it land a few feet in front of them in the courtyard. The cockpit opened up. What's up, my brothers and sisters? Mikey greeted enthusiastically as he, Don, Zuko, and Karai got outside to greet the surprised group. What the shell? How'd you guys score a helicopter? Raph questioned. What happened to the war balloon? It kind of got destroyed. Zuko answered. Sounds like one heck of a fishing trip. April said. Don noticed the bandages his oldest brother was wearing. Leo, are you okay? What happened? A training accident. Leo dismissed. Don't worry, it's nothing to worry about. Katara looked away in partial shame, not just at hurting Leo but the fact that he was able to cover for her, despite what she just did. So, did you guys get some good meat? Toph asked. We did, Sokka answered. The best meat of all. The meat of friendship and fatherhood. The cargo bay of the helicopter opened up as Suki, Master Splinter, Hakoda, Casey, Usagi, and Chit-sang walked out to join the group. "I'm new. What's up everybody?" Chit-sang greeted in a friendly manner. Katara couldn't believe her eyes. "Dad." Tears of joy fell from her eyes. "Hi Katara." He greeted his daughter as she ran up and gave him a big hug. "Master Splinter." Leo and Raph exclaimed at the same time as they ran up to their sensei with an embrace of their own. "My sons, it is good to see you, too." Splinter winced at the crushing embrace. "Please, my spine." They released their hug. "Casey." April ran up and not only gave him a hug, but a kiss on the cheek as well. "I've missed up so much." "I missed you too babe." Casey hugged back. Leo smiled as he gave Usagi a bow, who returned a bow as well. Leo then looked towards Karai. "Okay, where did you guys go really?" he humorously asked. "We broke into a maximum security Fire Nation prison." Karai answered. At this heartwarming moment the only one who could ruin it spoke up. "Seriously, you guys didn't bring any meat?" Toph questioned. This earned a laugh from everyone present. Dawn was the first to look serious though. "We also got some bad meat as well." "What do you mean by that?" Aang asked. "Hama's back," Mikey stated. This caught Leo, Aang, Raph, and Toph by surprise, and Katara had her own look of horror on her face. "What?" Leo questioned. "Who's Hama?" April asked. "A borderline vampire waterbender," Raph answered. "And a deranged old hag." "Not anymore," Karai said, getting everyone attention. Drive Stockman was able to clone her a younger body and transfer her mind into it. "This Hama character is far stronger than the last time you've faced her. And my father has her paired with Azula." "Azula and Hama together," Toph stated. "Well that can't be good." "No. That's not good at all." Leo agreed. Boss Sing Se, Foot Central Command. Mai and Ty Lee were forced to their knees by the Foot Elite as they, Hun, and Hama walked into the personal quarters of Oroku Sake. Dr. Chaplin was also present as he looked in surprise. "Oh this can't be good," Chaplin thought. Oroku Sake looked questionably at this situation. "What is the meaning of this?" "Master Shredder," Hun began. "We encountered two of the turtles, as well as both Karai and Zuko at the Boiling Rock as you predicted. But these two little traitors helped them to escape with a number of prisoners, including the Turtles' Rat Master." Chaplin had a bad idea of where this might go as he reached into his lab coat pocket for a certain remote, just in case. Oroku Sake looked towards Hama. "Is this true?" "It is, Master Shredder," Hama confirmed. Oroku Sake then looked towards Mai and Ty Lee. The pink-clad acrobat looked very frightened, and while Mai was glaring at the evil ninjutsu master, Sheeta felt fear deep in her heart. "You two betray the Foot. Of course. You're pure evil." Ty Lee practically screamed at him. "You were the one who killed Fire Lord Ozai. You framed Zuko and Karai. So you know." Oroku Sake must. "You are aware of just what I am capable of, and what I have done, and yet you still decide to stand against me. Are you aware of what I do to my enemies?" Mai looked towards Oroku Sake in the eye. "I guess you don't know people as well as you think you do. You miscalculated. I love Zuko, more than I fear you." That comment struck a nerve in Oroku Sake as his eyes slightly widened before he glared right at her. "Ouch." Chaplin winced, even he felt that one. "A very poor mistake on your part," Oroku Sake stated angrily as he picked up a clawed gauntlet from his desk. "One the two of you will now take to your graves." Hun and Hama smirked as the two Fire Nation girls looked frightened. Before he could raise it however, Chaplin hit a button on his hidden remote, triggering a brief EMP that knocked out the lights. "What the hell?" Hun questioned. "Who turned out the lights?" Hama questioned as well. The lights then suddenly came back on. Oroku Sake looked in surprise to see that both Mai and Ty Lee were gone. The elite were taken aback as the two girls just there. "Where'd they go?" Hama exclaimed. "Go. Find them," Oroku Sake ordered. "Do not allow them to escape." With that, the elite ninja, Hama, and Hun left the chambers of the enraged Oroku Sake, who didn't even notice that Chaplin was gone as well. Meanwhile, somewhere in an empty hallway, Chaplin had pulled both Mai and Ty Lee away. "Okay, we should be safe here," he said. "Now listen." Before he could finish, Mai grabbed his collar with one hand and pinned him to the wall as she held a knife in her other hand. "What's your game, here? What do you want?" Mai demanded to the startled Chaplin. "Mai wait, it's okay. Ty Lee tried to stop her friend. He's a good guy. I can see it in his aura. Don't worry, I'm a friend. Chaplin assured. I work for Karai. That caught both their attention. I'm a double agent who's giving her information about the Shredder and what he's up to. I'm on your side, I swear. Mai looked to Ty Lee, who read his aura. He's telling the truth. She let Chaplin go. Sorry. Forget it, Chaplin said as he straightened himself up. Hey, thanks for saving us back there. Ty Lee thanked with a smile. Yeah, no problem. Chaplin began. I don't have much time, so listen carefully. The Shredder knows where Karai and her friends are and is going to attack first thing tomorrow. What? Mai questioned. What are we going to do? Ty Lee worriedly asked. You want to help Karai? Chaplin asked, and they nodded. Then go to the docking bay where the foot carrier is. Hide in its cargo hold and you'll get a free ride to where Karai is. Tell her that Dr. Chaplin sent her. Why are you helping us? Mai asked. We barely know each other. Karai told me about you guys. Chaplin answered. And any friend of hers is a friend of mine. But why help Karai? Mai asked as well. Why turn your back on Shredder? Ty Lee, once again, got a good look at his aura before a smile formed on her face. It's cause he likes her. Really? Mai questioned with a sly smirk, causing Chaplin to blush. We don't have time for this. Go. Okay, thanks. Mai thanked. Yeah, thanks a lot. Ty Lee thanked as well as they ran down one hall. Chaplin made sure they remained out of sight before he went off in a separate direction to mislead the Foot Elite. Meanwhile, Azula was walking down the halls of the Foot Central Command building to her own personal room to get some rest. As she walked alone, certain words that Zuko and Mai spoke to her kept ringing in her head. You really think the Shredder is trying to help the Fire Nation? You're many things, but you are not an idiot. Use your head, Azula. It's because I'm not a puppet like you. Do you honestly think the Shredder is really helping us? Wake up, Azula, he had you pegged for hired help the moment he met you. That can't be true. Azula weakly spoke to herself. I'm not a puppet, am I? As she opened the door to her room, an overwhelming stench entered her nose and she quickly covered. Great Sozin, what is that rancid odor? Azula questioned the stink as she held her nose and mouth. It was coming from none other than the dark turtles that were waiting for Azula in her own room. What's your problem, sister? Smells like home to me. Dark Mikey said with a grin. What are you freaks all doing here? Azula questioned to the dark turtles. We heard how your friends ended up ditching you, so the Shredder is now having us work with you and Hama from now on. Dark Dawn answered. So be nice. Dark Raph warned as he walked to Azula. We had to crawl out of a freaking chasm and walk most of the way here. He pointed his finger talon at her, which Azula baited away. Don't you dare threaten me, you hideous. I wouldn't go there. Dark Mikey advised. He's been sensitive about his looks lately. Shut up. Azula exclaimed. Cool it, princess. Dark Leo told her. Since you and Hama are gonna be working with us from now on, it's best you keep a cool head. Especially since we're gonna be paying your brother, the Turtles, and all their friends a little visit tomorrow morning. Chapter 29, The Southern Raiders. It was dawn at the Western Air Temple, as everyone lay asleep in this campsite. Leo, Raph, Dawn, Mikey, Katara, Sokka, Toph, Suki, Zuko, Karai, April, Casey, Usagi, Chitsang, Hakoda, Teo, the Duke, and Haru were asleep on the ground with their sleeping bags. Meanwhile, Aang laid on the sleeping Appa, and Master Splinter was in a meditative position in the daylight. However, the Rat Master's eyes shot open as he sensed something. Avatar. Wake up, Splinter stated. Aang was startled awake, along with Appa. What is it? Less than a second later, a missile came down from the sky directly towards them. Getting his bearings, Aang picked up his staff and used his airbending to pull the missile and circle it around him and send it back out, where it exploded in the air. Several more missiles and gunfire shot down from the sky around the Western Air Temple. The resulting explosions woke up everyone in the camp. What the shell is going on? Raph questioned as they woke up. Aang and Splinter both ran to the edge and looked up to see the massive foot carrier descending down from the sky and firing missiles down around the area on the temple. Aang and Splinter ran back in. What's going on? Leo questioned. The foot found us. Splinter answered as Aang using airbending to close the doors around the doors to seal the area everyone was inside. Foot carrier bridge. Dr. Stockman was at the command with several foot technicians working at the controls. "Sir, we have the enemy located," one technician reported. "Fire around the area. Flush them out," Stockman ordered. "Yes, sir." More missiles fired around the sealed area where all the heroes were hiding in. The missile's firepower was definitely more than the ancient temple could handle as it continued to shake and rock. Several pieces of the ceiling began to crumble as a large piece of debris fell down towards a certain waterbender. "Look out!" Karai tackled Katara out of the way before the debris could crush her. "What are you doing?" Katara questioned. "Preventing you from being crushed," Karai responded. "Okay, I'm not crushed. You can get off me now," Katara rudely said as she got up. Karai chose not to respond to Katara's ungratefulness. Toph and Haru both used their earthbending to create a large tunnel at the back wall for everyone to escape. "Come on, we can get out through here." Toph pointed down the tunnel. "You heard her. Let's go," Dawn ordered as everyone tried to file in through the hole. Aang meanwhile struggled to pull Appa in by the reins into the tunnel. He looked to see both Karai and Zuko walking towards the closed and crumbling gates. "What are you guys doing? Go ahead. We'll hold them off," Zuko told everyone. "We know exactly who's here, and you must keep the sword of Tengu away from him," Karai stated as she picked up the sheathed sword and threw it to Aang as she and Zuko ran. Aang caught the sword but was still surprised to see them run off. Zuko, Karai, no, Sokka, Leo, and Katara came towards Aang. "Come on, we have to get out of here," Sokka stated as they tried to pull Appa's reins. However, they looked in surprise to see Master Splinter running to join the two redeemed warriors. "Master Splinter, what are you doing?" Leo questioned. "Go, I will help Zuko and Karai." Before anyone could protest, the rat sensei he had already joined Zuko and Karai as the three leapt through the hole of the collapsing gate and out into the collapsing courtyard where they saw the massive foot carrier hovering over them. "We must get onto the deck," Karai stated. Zuko got an idea. "Both of you hold onto me." Splinter and Karai held onto Zuko as he shot large pillars of flame from both his hands and feet that propelled all three straight up. They flew up quite a distance before Zuko's flames went out and they rolled onto the massive deck of the foot carrier, which bore a striking resemblance to the deck of a Navy aircraft carrier. As they got up, they looked around to see several foot ninja come up onto the deck via elevated platforms. Along with them included the foot elite who appeared in a large plume of smoke. At the top of a satellite tower jumped down all four dark turtles, each of them bearing an evil laugh. Another platform elevated onto the deck to reveal none other than Azula, Hama, and Hun as all three smirked evilly. Karai, Zuko, and Master Splinter circled up as they glared at all their enemies. Zuko looked towards his sister. "What are you doing here?" he questioned. "You mean it's not obvious? I'm about to celebrate becoming an only child," Azula replied. "Yeah. It's payback time," Dark Mikey chuckled as he laughed maniacally. "No, they are mine." Splinter, Zuko, and Karai looked to see a crowd of foot ninja clear the way to reveal the Shredder himself who was leading this mission. All three glared as he walked forward. "Shredder," Splinter growled. Shredder glared back with his red eyes at Zuko, Karai, and Splinter, some of the foes that he hated the most. Splinter for being one to defeat him quite a few times, Zuko and Karai for leaving and joining his enemies. "My friends, I had long anticipated this moment," Shredder stated as he raised his claws. "I'm surprised with your genius it took you this long to find us," Zuko shot back. With nothing else needing to be said, Shredder leapt high and directly at the three, forcing them to scatter. Zuko rolled before coming up and shooting several fireballs directly at Shredder. He braced himself as the flames bounced off his armor before he charged at Zuko, who ducked to avoid a slice from his claws. Karai then came in from behind and kicked the Shredder on his back to force him to Zuko, who responded with a flaming kick across the face. But Shredder was able to come back and grab Zuko's leg before he pulled it back. He threw Zuko towards Karai and the two rolled for a bit, but Shredder's victory was short-lived as Splinter came in with a palm thrust to knock Shredder back. The two glared at each other. "How many times must we do this, rat?" Shredder questioned. "As many times until my master Yoshi has been avenged," Splinter declared before he and Shredder leapt at each other and met in midair. As the two fell, they exchanged and parried several punches and kicks, but none connected as the two moved at blinding speed. They landed on the ground roughly as Shredder kicked Splinter back. He rolled a bit, but found a spare metal rod and picked it up to block Shredder's incoming slash. Splinter parried the clawed gauntlet before he slammed the rod across Shredder's face to knock him back. Zuko and Karai both got up to face all the remaining enemy forces, each thinking of his or her own way to make the two suffer. "This is gonna be good," Hama muttered as she created two water whips around her arms as the Dark Turtles drew their respective weapons. "I call dibs on cracking Zuko's skull," Dark Raph exclaimed. Before anything else could happen, the bad guys all heard the sounds of battle erupting behind them and looked in shock to see several foot ninja fall on the ground. Ty Lee ran as fast as she could, Kai blocking all the ninja around her and causing them to fall on the ground. Several ninja tried to jump Ty Lee with their katanas, but all their swords were knocked out of their hands by a series of knives that Mai tossed as she ran towards them and performed a fast roundhouse to knock them all back. They both leapt into the air and landed by the surprised duo. "Hey guys," Ty Lee greeted with a smile. "My, Ty Lee," Zuko questioned in shock. How are you?" Karai stuttered. "Long story. We'll tell you after we kick all their butts." Mai responded as they faced the surprised looks of the enemy. Among the most surprised was Azula, but her look turned into a deep scowl as she remembered how her so-called friends turned on her. She was the first to attack by blasting a column of blue flame directly at them. While the fighting continued on top of the foot carrier's deck, the collapse of the Western Air Temple continued as several missiles and energy blasts were shot around the area that the heroes were barricaded in. Toph and Haru were both able to create a large earth dome around the group to keep the rubble from crashing onto them. "Come on, we need to go. Why aren't we going?" Mikey quickly questioned. Aang, Leo, Sokka, and Katara tried to pull Appa's reins, but he refused to budge. "I can't get him to go in there. Appa hates tunnels," Aang stated. "You've gotta be freaking kidding me," Casey exclaimed. Leo sighed. "Looks like we'll have to fight our way out of here." "What? Leo, we can't fly through there," Katara exclaimed. "We have to," Leo responded. "Master Splinter, Zuko, and Karai are out there, risking their lives to help us, and I am not abandoning them." "Leo's right," Aang agreed. "Plus we have the Sword of Tengu. We can do this. Then we'll have to split up," Don said. "We're too big a group to escape." All turtles and members of Team Avatar board Appa. "Hang on, I'm going with you guys," Casey stated as he walked forward with his bag of sports gear and his hockey mask on. "So am I," April agreed as she joined them. "Me too." Suki walked forward as well. "All right," Sokka said as he turned to the group consisting of Hakoda, Usagi, Chitsang, Teo, the Duke, and Haru. "Take the tunnel and get to the stolen helicopter. We're the Foot's main targets," Leo said as well. "We'll keep them busy while you all escape." "Very well," Usagi said as he bowed. "We will meet again, my brother." Leo bowed as well. "Yes, we will. Good luck, Usagi." The only one who didn't seem to be in agreement was Katara. "No, the Foot cannot separate our family again," she said as she walked close to her father. Hakoda placed his hands on his daughter's shoulders. "It'll be okay. It's not forever. Katara, it's the only way," Mikey told her. Katara knew deep down that they were right. She gave her father a hug before running back towards Appa. Sokka hugged Hakoda as well before he and Usagi led their group down the tunnel. Leo, Raph, Katara, Sokka, Mikey, Don, Suki, Casey, and April all mounted Appa's saddle, along with Momo, while Aang slung the Sword of Tengu on his back and got onto Appa's head and took the reins. Toph felt the rock barricade in front of them. "I can clear that away and we can fly out through there," she said as she used her earthbending to propel herself up onto Appa. "Okay, so we gotta move quick," Leo said. "We'll go in, grab Zuko, Karai, and Master Splinter, then hightail it out of here." You do know that there's a giant flying metal ship out there, right?" Suki reminded. "We'll get through," Aang declared. "Let's go." Foot carrier's upper deck. Zuko, Karai, Ty Lee, and Mai were on the defensive end as they continued to struggle against the combined efforts of Azula, Hama, Hun, the Dark Turtles, and the Foot Elite. Zuko and Mai threw fireballs and knives respectively, but Hama was able to catch them with her waterbending as Azula shot more streams of blue fire, forcing Karai to leap to the front and bat them away with her dual katanas. The four were back towards the edge of the foot carrier as they saw the deep chasm below. That's a long way down. Ty Lee gulped. Deja vu, huh Scarface. Dark Dawn taunted Zuko. Yeah, you tossed us down that hole. Dark Raph exclaimed. And now it's your turn. Dark Leo stated as all 11 enemies slowly approached them. At the same time, Master Splinter continued to battle Shredder as they parried claws against Metal Rod. Both seemed evenly matched as Splinter twirled the rod and thrusted it towards Shredder, but he swerved out of the way and used his claws to slice it in half. Splinter jumped back as he twirled the two smaller rods in his hands and still held them. He looked back to see the predicament Zuko and the three young women were in and knew this situation looked grim. That is, until a loud and familiar roar came from the sky as Appa was soaring down towards the upper deck. Go, 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 Leo ordered as Appa curved upward and everyone else jumped down against the enemy forces, causing them to clash. Leo and Aang both landed by Splinter's side as Leo was the first one to charge straight at Shredder with both his katanas, but the Shredder caught them in between his blades. This left him open, however, for Aang to thrust his hands forward and hit Shredder directly with an airbending blast to send Shredder rolling across the ground. Zuko jumped forward and shot several fireballs directly at Dark Leo, who was still caught by surprise by the sudden arrival of reinforcements, and was unable to deflect the balls, causing him to be blasted back by the impact. Karai went straight for Azula as she tried to shoot a stream of blue fire at her, only for Karai to duck and sweep her feet to knock Azula down. Karai tried to slice her sword down onto Azula, but she backflipped out of the way. The two glared at each other before they clashed once again. As soon as Toph landed in front of Dark Raph, he tried to charge at her, but she used her metal bending to pry a large piece of metal off the deck and block a strike from his talon knuckle. She then wrapped the metal around her arms in the form of metal gauntlets, which she used to beat Dark Raph across the face. Don twirled his staff as he blocked the claw strikes from Dark Dawn. When Don attempted to go on the offensive with his staff, Dark Dawn blocked it with his wrist guards. As the two locked, Suki quickly came in and landed a kick right at Dark Dawn's face, which allowed Don to slam his staff across his clone's body, knocking him back. Mikey swung his nunchucks to parry the clubs used by Dark Mikey as the evil clone continued to laugh. Dude, I am so sick of that laugh. Mikey complained as he purposely fell back, pulling his clone with him. Mikey then used his feet to flip kick Dark Mikey over him and send him flying across the deck of the foot carrier. Katara tried to bend water at a certain enemy, only for Hama to pull it away with her waterbending. Hello Katara, Hama sadistically greeted. It's been a while. A chill fell down Katara's spine as she recognized her. Hama. Yes, she greeted with an evil smile before thrusting her tentacles at Katara. The young waterbender tried to defend herself, but as she did, her mind flashed back to when she struck Leo, which caused Katara to stumble and allow Hama to wrap her water tentacles around Katara and pull her in close. What's the matter Katara? Hama taunted as she saw Katara's terrified face. Are you afraid of me? You should be. When it looked like Hama was about to strike, Raph quickly fell down and used a kick to knock back Hama, forcing her to let go of Katara. Katara, get your head in the game. Raph told her as she was trying to recover. Finally, Hama stated as she got up to face Raph. I've waited a long time for this, reptile. Raph smirked. Hama, I almost didn't recognize ya. New haircut. He joked, which caused Hama to scowl as she thrust her water whips at Raph, who took out the axe that Traximus gave him as he used it to block and slice away the tentacles shot at him. Goongala. Casey shouted as he ran at Hun with a baseball bat in his right hand, and a golf club in his left. Hun tried to punch Casey, but he caught his wrist with the golf club, which he used to turn Hun's momentum against him in order to flip him over. Hun growled as he got up. Hockey season's over vigilante. Hun growled. Yeah, well baseball's in season, Casey said behind his hockey mask as he used his baseball bat to smack Hun across the face, only for him to reel back with a punch to knock Casey back, but Casey quickly got up to charge Hun again. Meanwhile, the four elite ninja charged at April, Mai, Ty Lee, and Sokka. Sokka blocked a strike from the one with the axe, by using his space sword as April used her katana to parry the spear strikes from the second elite ninja. Ty Lee used her nimble agility to avoid the swipes from the elite ninja with the double-bladed sword as Mai used 2 knives to block the trident thrust from the 4th elite ninja as the 4 found them circling up to face the elite. They ended up looking at each other's almost awkwardly. So hi there. Ty Lee tried. Yeah, this is awkward. Sokka said. Right. How often do you see old enemies working together? Mai asked skeptically. We'll talk it out after we get out of this. April said as they braced themselves against the elite ninja. At the same time, Aang shot both a fire fist and an air wave directly at the Shredder, who was quick and nimble to avoid both as he charged at Aang, but the resourceful Avatar is able to use his staff to block a slash from Shredder's gauntlets. Leo then came in with several slashes from his swords. The armor protected Shredder, but he still found himself knocked back from the force of it. He growled as he faced both Aang and Leo as they faced him with combat stances. I grow tired of you children and freaks, and your constant interference. You were the one who tried to take over the world. Aang shot at him. You've hurt and killed too many innocent people. And we're here to stop you. Leo declared. We shall see about that. Shredder stated as he charged forward, but Master Splinter leapt over both his eldest son and the young Avatar as he twirled both small metal rods in his hands and quickly flashed them across Shredder's body. Leo and Aang both joined in as well. Leo slashed at Shredder with his swords, knocking Shredder back. Aang decided to bring out the big guns as he quickly put on a metal glove and pulled out the sword of Tengu. Shredder saw Aang wield the sword as it surged with energy. The sword of Tengu, he observed as the energized blade reflected in his red eyes. Aang shot a blast from the sword, scoring a direct hit on Shredder. He flew across the deck and even fell off the edge. Fortunately for him though, he was able to use his clawed gauntlet to prevent himself from falling as it embedded itself into the wall. Leonardo. Aang, we must leave. Now. Master Splinter told them as they looked back and saw all their friends currently fighting some of their most dangerous enemies. I got it. Aang said as he wielded the sword of Tengu once again. Everyone get down. All his friends seemed to hear him as they all jumped out of the way in their own respective directions just as Aang swung the sword, sending a large energy wave directly at the enemy forces. The Dark Turtles, Elite Ninja, Hun, Hama, even Azula were all impacted and sent flying, scattered across the deck by the force of the sword of Tengu. Aang put the sword away and blew his bison whistle, signaling for Appa to come in and land on the deck. Everyone on the bison. We're leaving. Leo ordered as he, Aang, and Splinter were the first to board, followed by Raph, Dawn, Katara, Casey, Suki, Sokka, Mikey, April, Toph, Karai, Zuko, even Mai and Ty Lee. Yip, yip. Aang snapped the reins, signaling for Appa to take flight. Right before Appa could take off, Hama was the first to struggle up. She glared as she would not let her enemies escape. Hama tried to bend her water, but to her surprise, it didn't move even an inch. What the? Hama then felt a pain shoot up her right arm. She grimaced as she rolled up her sleeve and looked in shock to see her skin shift and move around her arm. Her hand even twitched a bit before it seemed to settle down. What is happening to me? Hama questioned. Azula was next to recover from the attack as she saw the sky bison and everyone on it already take off and into the air. Oh no you don't. Azula glared as she took a stance and readied her lightning. As she did this, Shredder had climbed back up onto the deck and had seen the sky bison flying away. He also saw Azula ready to shoot lightning at it. His eyes widened at it. If she shot down the sky bison over the chasm, they would lose the sword of Tengu. Azula. Hold. Shredder ordered. Do not shoot down that bison. Azula had her lightning primed and ready. No. She shot back. I have a shot to take and I'm going to take it. She was about to thrust her hand out, but Shredder caught her wrist. I said hold. He tried to get her to re-aim it, but it was too late. The lightning shot straight towards the bison. Mikey was the first to see it. Incoming. As everyone looked shocked at what would happen, Zuko acted on pure instinct as he stood up and ran towards the edge of the saddle. He held out his index and middle finger and caught the lightning bolt. His body surged with electricity as he grimaced, while everyone, human and turtle, even rat, could only look in awe and surprise. No time to aim it, Zuko shot out his other hand, redirecting the lightning straight at the foot carrier's right front engine. As soon as the lightning hit it, a large explosion erupted. Due to the sudden loss of the engine, the foot carrier began to tilt and slowly lose its balance. Everyone on board the deck, the Dark Turtles, Hun, Hama, the Foot Elite, Azula, and Shredder all loosed their balance as the foot carrier rocked. Everyone inside the control room lost their balance as well, including Stockman. What happened? Sir, one of our engines has been knocked out. One of the technicians reported. Stabilize us. Now. Outside, the remaining 3 functional engines shoot out extra power in order for the foot carrier to be stabilized. As it stabilized itself, Appa flew further and further away. Zuko fell back onto the saddle as Mai and Karai caught him. Zuko, are you okay? Mai asked urgently. Yeah, Zuko breathed. I'm fine. Whoa. Casey and Mikey said at the same time as Sokka's jaw dropped and everyone else looked in surprised amazement at Zuko's feet. How did you do that? Don asked. Zuko gave a weak chuckle. Something my uncle taught me. As Appa flew away, everyone on the deck moaned as they tried to get back on their feet. Azula rubbed her head slightly, but was soon grabbed by the throat and pulled close to the face of the enraged Shredder. When I give you an order, you are to obey it. Shredder yelled at Azula, causing her to look terrified at him. Disobey me again and I will break you. Do you understand me? Yes. Yes, Master Shredder. Azula screamed in terror as Shredder threw her to the ground. He turned to face all his servants. Return to Boss Sing Se. Shredder ordered. We must make sure Project Meteoroid proceeds on schedule. But Master, they have the Sword of Tengu. Hun said. I am aware of that. Shredder replied. But they will come to us eventually. And when they do, show no mercy. I want the turtles, the Avatar, and all their friends dead. Their severed heads brought to my feet. As Shredder voiced his wrath, Hama looked at her right arm, which seemed to be fine right now, but what was that? What caused her to temporarily lose her bending and all feeling in her right arm? Later that night, the group had set up camp on a small island in the middle of the ocean. They all sat around a campfire. Wow, camping. Aang reminisced. It really seems like old times, doesn't it? Ah, memories. Mikey said with a chill voice. Reminds me of the time we hid out at Casey's old farmhouse. Only no farmhouse. If you really want it to feel like old times, Zuko tried as he broke a piece of bread. I could chase you around a bit and try to capture you. He joked. Most of the group laughed. Was that a joke? Don said with a laugh. Big Bad Zuko's got a sense of humor. Who knew? Raph chuckled. As most of the laughs stifled down, April spoke up. So Zuko, who are your friends? She gestured to the 2 young women that sat near him. I'm Mai. She responded simply. I'm Ty Lee, nice to meet you all. The pink acrobat greeted friendly. How are you here though? Karai asked. Yeah, we though the foot captured you guys back at the Boiling Rock. Mikey recalled. We had some help from your friend Chaplin, Karai. Mai answered. He says hello. Karai gave a smile. Well, I am pleased that you are here. She was greeted by a hug from Ty Lee. Ah, I missed you too. You know it feels weird. Sokka said as he looked towards Zuko, Karai, Ty Lee, and Mai. It wasn't that long ago you guys were hunting us down, but now you're with us. I don't think it's weird. Leo said. You guys were just on the wrong path, and now you're on the right one. Indeed. Master Splinter agreed. It matters not where you are from or how you were raised, it is the choices we make that determine who we are. And I feel it is safe to say, you have all made the right choice. He bowed slightly. We are honored to have all of you with us. Here, Aang, Leo, Casey, Raph, Don, Mikey, Sokka, April, Toph, and Suki all said at the same time as they raised their cups, while Zuko, Karai, Mai, and Ty Lee all shared smiles with each other. No one, however, seemed to notice Katara looking down with a guilty expression, still remembering what she did to Leo. Hey, Zuko, we're friends right? Mikey asked. Yeah, Zuko replied. So I gotta ask, how did you get that cool-looking scar? Mikey asked. This caught Zuko by surprise. Yeah, I gotta know too. Casey seemed in agreement. It makes you look like a badass. You know, I've always wondered about that myself. Aang said. Zuko looked down slightly as Karai looked towards him. Truth be told, she was curious herself, but she didn't ask because she felt it was a sensitive subject for Zuko. Ty Lee and Mai both looked towards each other with grim expressions, as they knew how Zuko got that scar. April and Leo seemed to get the hint. Hey, you don't have to tell us if you don't want to. Leo said. Yeah, if it's too painful or, April tried. No, no. Zuko raised his hand. If you guys want to know, I'll tell you. The entire group, even Katara, began to listen intently as Zuko began. It was 3 years ago. My father was hosting a war meeting with his council. I wanted to attend, but the Gwars wouldn't let. My uncle, however, was able to get me in, on the condition that I wouldn't speak during it. Flashback. Ozai sat in his throne with flames around it as he listened to his generals and admirals discuss their recent developments on a large map table showing the Earth Kingdom continent. The Earth Kingdom defenses are concentrated here. An old general began. A dangerous battalion of their strongest earthbenders and fiercest warriors. He slid a piece over on the map. So I am recommending the 41st Division. But the 41st is entirely new recruits. Another general said. How do you expect them to defeat a powerful Earth Kingdom battalion? I don't. The first general replied. They'll be used as a distraction while we mount an attack from the rear. A somewhat sadistic smile formed on his face. What better to use as bait than fresh meat? You can't sacrifice an entire division like that. A younger Zuko exclaimed angrily as he stood up. Those soldiers love and defend our nation. How can you betray them? All the war officers looked at him with glares. Reality. As you can imagine, no one was pleased with my outburst. Zuko told the story. Of course you were angry. Don stated. Those guys were sacrificing an entire battalion of soldiers. Yeah, that is so uncool. Mikey agreed. I knew the Fire Nation military was bad, but I didn't think any of them would actually betray their own soldiers. Aang said. Still, it didn't matter if I was right or not. Zuko replied. It still was not my place to speak out, and it resulted in consequences. I've got a bad feeling about this. Leo grimaced. What happened next? Sokka asked. After my outburst, my father was not happy. Zuko continued. He said that my challenge of the general was an act of complete disrespect. And there was only one way it could be resolved. What? Suki asked. Agni Kai. Mai answered. A firebending duel. You're kidding. Raph said. You tried to defend soldiers you don't even know, and you had to fight. I love a good fight as much as the next guy, but that's taking it too far. Wait till you hear the rest of it. Ty Lee said in a scared tone of voice. I thought I would be fighting the general, but I wasn't. Zuko continued. When I spoke out in my father's war room, it was actually him I had disrespected. So when I went to the arena I looked in shock at the reality that I was going to fight my own father. That caught the entire group by surprise, even Karai was caught off guard. What? Aang questioned. You had to fight your dad? Toph questioned. Yeah, Zuko replied. And needless to say, I knew I didn't stand a chance. I was terrified. So, what did you do? Leo asked. The only thing I knew how to do at that moment. I begged. Zuko answered. Flashback. The young Zuko stood on the arena, facing his father and had a look of terror on his face. Please father. I only had the Fire Nation's best interest at heart. I'm sorry I spoke out of turn. You will fight for your honor. Ozai said as he menacingly approached Zuko. Zuko got on his knees. I meant you no disrespect. I am your loyal son. Rise and fight Prince Zuko. Ozai demanded as he stood over him. I won't fight you. Zuko bowed his head. You will learn respect, and suffering will be your teacher. Ozai said as Zuko looked at him with tearful and fearful eyes. The next thing Zuko would see, would be a blast of flame. Reality. Zuko had finished telling the story. Leo, Don, Aang, Sokka, Suki, and Mikey looked in shock. April covered her mouth with both her hands. Toph's dull eyes were wide with terror, Karai's own pupils shook. Katara herself had a look of terror on her face. Raph's face meanwhile was twisted in an angry scowl. Casey looked ready to explode in anger. Zuko looked down, recalling that painful memory, but was soon felt a comforting embrace by Mai, which he was grateful for. Even Ty Lee put a hand on his shoulder. Dang. Mikey breathed. Zuko Aang tried. I always thought it was some kind of accident. Leo said. It was no accident. Mai said with venom in her voice. Casey then stood up as he roared in rage. That lousy piece of the Fire Lord, and the Shredder, he yelled as he picked up a broken down tree branch. Bunch of heartless goons. he yelled as he smashed the branch against a large rock. Why, I just wanna, Casey yelled. Everyone in the group looked with wide-eyed expressions at Casey's outburst. The first one to speak was April. I think what Mr. Jones here is trying to say is, she said as she stood up, put her hands on Casey's and helped him sit down. We're really sorry for what happened to you, Zuko. Thank you, Zuko said gratefully. That means a lot. What happened next? Toph asked. After that, my father said I had shown shameful weakness. Zuko continued. And for that weakness, I was banished. And the only way I could return home was by capturing me. Aang finished. Man, now I feel bad that we didn't let you capture us. Sokka said. It certainly explains why you were chasing Aang all over the world. Don said to Zuko. It was the only way you could go home. Yeah, Zuko replied. Raph growled. Ozai, that bastard. You know what? I'm actually glad Shredder killed that son of bitch. I hope he's in hell right now eating a barf burger. Ozai got what he deserved, no question. Karai said. However, now the Fire Nation is under the domino of someone far worse. Not if we have anything to say about it. Leo stated. With all of us together, we're gonna stop the Shredder. Got that right, bro. Mikey agreed. He turned to Ty Lee and Mai. You ladies with us. Ty Lee and Mai both shared smiles. Might as well. Mai replied with a shrug. This is gonna be fun. Ty Lee practically beamed with excitement. Master Splinter gave a smile. It is fortunate that we have such strong and honorable warriors with us. For now, I suggest everyone sleep. We shall move to a safer place later, where we will plan our own counterattack. Sounds like a plan, Toph said as she fell ABCK and created her own earth tent. Alright, everyone get some Z's. We'll think of a plan tomorrow. Leo said as everyone stood up and went to their respective tents. The only one to not stand up at that moment was Katara. The whole time she heard this story, about how Ozai scared Zuko, she remembered how she attacked Leo back at the Western Air Temple. As she looked at her hands, she remembered the face of the younger Hama as her pupils shrunk. I'm no better than any of them. Katara thought to herself. It was later at night, most of the group had gone to sleep in their respective tents. Katara however found herself unable to sleep, so she instead found herself slowly approaching the tent that belonged to Master Splinter. She didn't know why, but she felt that this was the only thing for her to do. Once she opened the tent, she could see that Splinter was facing the rock wall on the back. He wasn't sleeping but meditating. Katara hesitated for a moment before speaking. Master Splinter. He opened his eyes. Katara, shouldn't you be resting? I can't sleep. Katara couldn't finish. I did something really stupid. Splinter turned to face her. Tell me, what happened? Katara exhaled deeply as she kneeled and told him everything. She told him about how shortly after Karai and Zuko joined the team back at the Western Air Temple, she saw visions of her mother, and the advice that she gave her. Katara even told how she distanced herself from everyone, and how she even attacked Karai. Master Splinter said nothing as he continued to listen. Then Katara got to the part that she hated, her fight with Leo, and how she struck him and drew blood. Katara finished and lowered her head, waiting for him to respond, and she was expecting a harsh punishment of some sort, which she felt she deserved. You allowed your anger to get the best of you. Master Splinter spoke in a serious tone of voice. And in a sense of rage, you struck Leonardo. I'm so sorry, Katara spoke with a lowered head. I wanted to listen but, I don't know what happened. I just got so angry I didn't even know what I did until I did it. Young Katara, rage is a monster that will destroy you from within. A true warrior must find balance in all things. Master Splinter told her. I think I know why he's the better leader, or the better person now. Katara spoke as tears formed in her eyes. It wasn't him I was mad at but still, if I did that to him, who's to say I wouldn't do it to Aang? She let her tears fall. Master Splinter stood up and spoke softly. Katara, from the beginning, before you met my sons, it would seem you would try to bear the personal problems of Aang, Sokka, and Toph on your shoulders. It is an admirable quality when you are protector of others. I may not agree with how you handled the situation at that air temple. I can tell it was from a motivation deep down to protect the ones you care for. Katara looked in mild surprise as Splinter continued. You are strong-willed, passionate, and loyal to a fault. These are the merits of a great leader as well, but only when tempered with compassion and humility. Splinter continued to speak. However, I sense that the anger is still inside you, but I feel it as though that it is not directed towards Zuko and Karai, but rather something else that you have simply connected them to. So, you must ask yourself, what is it that you are truly angered at? Katara looked down as she thought. I know, a source of it is Shredder. After all that he's done to us, to you, to everyone who crosses him, and for what he did to Aang in Ba Sing Se, he's pure evil. He's a monster. He raised Karai so, I can't help but feel that she might be just like him. Master Splinter allowed her to speak. I can understand that, but that is how you feel towards Karai. What is it you are angered at Zuko for? Is it for how he relentlessly chased you and the Avatar across the world? I'm sure you know that he didn't have much of a choice in it. Or how he was forced by the Shredder to aid him in Ba Sing Se. I know that, Katara said. After what he told all of us, about what Ozai did to him, I can't help but feel sorry for him. But there is still something in your soul that is connecting the anger you felt at him to a different source. What is it? Splinter asked. Katara looked inside herself. As she held her necklace, she knew the answer. My mother. She was killed when I was only little, by a soldier from the Fire Nation. Since he's the prince of the Fire Nation, you felt as though he were the one responsible. Splinter finished, to which Katara nodded. You have to know, that at that time, he was likely not much older than you, therefore he had nothing to do with your mother's death. I know, Katara repeated. But I just don't know what to do. Perhaps now it is best that you get some rest, and we may find a solution later. Splinter advised. You mean, you're not mad at me? You don't hate me, after what I did to Leo? Splinter sighed. I am disappointed in how you handled that situation. However, this is not the first time I've had to deal with someone allowing their anger to control them. Just ask Raphael. Katara felt as though a huge weight was lifted off her shoulders, but there was still a hint of sadness inside. Thank you, Master Splinter. He nodded. Get some sleep. Katara got up and walked out of the tent. As she walked outside, she failed to notice both Zuko and Karai behind a rock. They overheard everything. One would argue that their eavesdropping was an invasion of privacy, but Karai could sense the torment in Katara's soul. As she and Zuko heard this, they both looked to each other and nodded, knowing what to do next. Ba Sing Se, Foot Central Command, Dr. Stockman's lab. Stockman had just taken a blood sample from Hama and was now looking at the data on a monitor. Hama sat on the chair waiting impatiently. Well, what's happening? I want to know. No need to shout, Stockman stated. For a brief moment, I lost my bending. Hama stated, standing up. And it looked like my skin was moving. My hand twitched and I lost all feeling in my right arm. That never happened to me before. You made this body for me. I have a right to know what is going on. Stockman rolled his eyes. Give me a moment, I need to look at this data. He looked at said data on his monitor's screen. After a moment he turned to Hama with an answer. It's nothing, the skin is just settling, that's all. Simple tissue acclimation. Hama raised an eyebrow. That's it. What about my bending? Can you waterbend now? Stockman questioned. Hama stretched her hand towards a sink and was able to pull water of it and bent a glob of water around her hand. Does that answer your question? Then like I said, it was simple tissue acclimation. It must have connected to your genes that allow you to bend and resulted in a temporary loss. Stockman assumed. So this won't happen again? Hama questioned. Probably not. Stockman answered. Though you may experience a few minor side effects such as numbing in certain places, maybe even a small case of nausea here and there. Side effects? Hama questioned. I thought you said this body was perfect for me. Keep in mind, that your cloned body was a rushed order. Stockman explained. I had to accelerate the cloning process, so you may still experience a few side effects, but nothing fatal. You're sure about that? Hama questioned again. I wouldn't have put you through the process if I wasn't sure. Stockman told her. Hama stood up. For your sake, Dr. Stockman, I hope you're right. She then left the room. Stockman rolled his holographic eyes again. Ignorant dolt. The truth was, he really had no idea what was happening. It was his first time cloning a bender. Perhaps there would be more side effects, perhaps her body would break down completely. He didn't care. If her body failed, he would study from the failures and be ever closer to cloning himself a new body, one that could bend all the elements, and he wouldn't have anything to fear from the Shredder again. For now though, it was best to observe Hama's progress, after all she is the test subject for this experiment. Team Avatar campsite. Sometime later, both the banished Fire Prince and former Foot Kunoichi walked towards another tent, but as they did Karai accidentally bumped into Suki approaching the same tent. Oops. Suki tried to put an innocent smile on. Wrong tent. She tried to walk away. Do you wish to see Sokka as well? Karai asked. Nope. Not me. Suki quickly answered before hurriedly walking away. What was that all about? Zuko questioned. It may not be any of our business. Karai answered before they both entered the tent. However, what they saw made Zuko's expression fall, and Karai's eyes widened in surprise. Sokka was on his belly, in a somewhat seductive position with candles and flowers everywhere. Well hello, Sokka sung with a rose in his mouth, but he quickly swallowed it with circular eyes at the two people he did not expect to be there. Karai. Zuko. Sokka quickly stood upright as Karai and Zuko, both looking rather disturbed, sat down. Yes why would I be expecting anybody different? He swallowed the rose whole. So can I help you guys with anything? The two redeemed warriors chose to forget this awkward situation as Karai spoke. It's your sister, she is in pain. What? Is she okay? Sokka urgently asked. No, she is fine, physically. Karai responded. However, her soul is being torn. What do you mean by that? Sokka asked, being quite confused by that statement. Zuko spoke next. Look, I know this is going to seem out of nowhere, but I want you to tell us what happened to your mother. Sokka became serious. What? Why would you guys want to know about that? Katara mentioned it before when we were imprisoned together in Ba Sing Se. Zuko answered. I overheard that myself. Karai remembered. She doesn't trust us, and we know why now. Her anger towards me is connected to her anger towards the Shredder, which I understand. And it would seem she is connecting her anger towards Zuko to the loss of her mother. We want to help her, and perhaps this may provide a solution. Sokka looked down. It's not a day I like to remember. If you don't want to talk about it, Zuko said, having understanding the pain of losing a mother himself. No, if you guys think this can help Katara, then I'll tell you. Sokka began to tell the story. Flashback. It was a bright sunny day in the Southern Water Tribe as a toddler Sokka came out from behind a snow mound with a snowball in his hand, however before he could throw it, another one hit his face. This came from a toddler Katara who giggled at her victory. Little Sokka came back with an even larger snowball in both his hands, however their game stopped upon seeing black snow fall from the sky. Both their smiles vanished, as, despite their young age, they both knew exactly what it meant. I'm going to find Mom. Little Katara said to her brother as she ran towards their home. Meanwhile, little Sokka had a look of determination as he ran in another direction, along with several other Southern Water Tribe warriors. Just outside the tribe, 3 large Fire Nation ships began to arrive onto the scene. Many of the warriors had seen the black snow before and they knew what it meant, a Fire Nation raid. Multiple Fire Nation soldiers gave yells as they jumped off their ships and charged directly at the tribe. Hakoda led the warriors as they too gave battle cries and charged at the incoming enemy. Little Sokka hid behind a pile of snow as he watched the battle. Despite the vast number of firebenders, the Water Tribe warriors seemed to have held the advantage. We were badly outnumbered, but somehow we managed to drive them off. One Fire Nation soldier was tossed into the snow pile little Sokka was hiding behind. Little Sokka threw a snowball at the unconscious soldier before running into the battlefield. He picked up a stray boomerang and wanted to join the fight, only to see the Fire Nation soldiers retreating. But as quickly as they came, they just left. Little Sokka spitefully threw the boomerang in the direction of the retreating Fire Nation ships and looked on with a hateful glare. End flashback. I was so relieved when it was over, but that's because I didn't know yet what had happened. Sokka looked down. I didn't know we lost our mother. Karai looked with sympathy as she placed a comforting hand on Sokka's shoulder. I am sorry. Zuko had listened to the story as well. He too felt sympathy for both Katara and Sokka, but he needed to ask something. Wait, can you remember any details about the soldiers who raided your village? Like, what the lead ship looked like? Sokka tried to remember. Yeah, sea ravens. The main ship had flags with sea ravens on them. The symbol of the southern raiders. Zuko stated. So, now we know who's responsible. Karai said. Thank you for sharing this information, Sokka, and I am truly sorry for your mother. Thanks, Karai, Sokka said with a grateful smile. And thanks for stopping by. He hurriedly pushed them both out of the tent before sighing in relief. I'd thought they'd never leave. Sokka had a dreamy smile as he stuck his head outside the tent. Suki, he then noticed Karai and Zuko giving Sokka odd stares. Sokka tried to put on an innocent whistle before they walked away. The next morning, Katara had just woken up and walked outside her tent, but looked in surprise to see both Zuko and Karai sitting on a rock in front of it. "Wah, what are you guys doing here?" she questioned. "We waited all night for you," Karai answered. Katara walked past them to gather some supplies as they stood up. "What do you want?" "We know who killed your mother," Zuko said, causing Katara to look in surprise. "And we're going to help you find them." Katara looked towards Zuko and Karai with a surprised expression before it turned serious. While some other members of this large team were still asleep, others had already woken up. Sokka was putting together a flower necklace, Leo and Splinter were both meditating, Casey was practicing some punches with Raph holding a sleeping bag like a punching bag, and Aang was getting some hay for Appa's breakfast. Sokka, Raph, and Casey were the first to notice Katara, Zuko, and Karai walking towards the group. "I need to borrow Appa," Katara told Aang. "Why? Is it your turn to take a little field trip with Zuko and Karai?" Aang jokingly asked. "Yes, it is," Katara answered in a very serious tone of voice. Leo and Splinter noticed the tone in Katara's voice, as did Aang as they gave Katara their attention. "What's going on?" Leo asked as he and Splinter stood up. "We're going to find the man who took my mother from me," Katara answered as Sokka, Raph, and Casey joined in. "Say what?" Raph questioned. Sokka told us the story of how it happened. Karai stated. "A Fire Nation group called the Southern Raiders were responsible. I know who did it, and I know how to find him," Zuko added. Master Splinter had a serious look on his face. "It would seem you have found the source of your anger. However, this approach you intend may not be for the best." "Yeah, what exactly is it that you think this will accomplish?" Aang questioned. Katara gave a scoffing laugh as she turned around. "I knew you wouldn't understand." Katara, "Stop, we do understand. All of us." Leo stopped her. "Shredder has been hunting us down and going after our friends for as long as we can remember." "I understand you," to Katara. Aang tried as well. "You're feeling unbelievable pain and rage. How do you think I felt about the Sandbenders when they stole Appa? How do you think about the Fire Nation when I found out what happened to my people? Or when Shredder nearly killed Aang back in Ba Sing Se?" Raph added. "Or what about Master Splinter, after old Buckethead killed his Master Yoshi? We understand what you are all trying to do." Karai spoke to the group. "However, she needs to face this man." Karai's right. Zuko agreed. "This is about getting closure and justice." "I don't think so." Aang disagreed. "I think it's about getting revenge." "Fine, maybe it is," Katara spitefully said. "Maybe it's what I need. Maybe it's what he deserves. It is not our place to determine whether a man deserves to live or die," Master Splinter stated. "You're starting to sound a lot like Hama, Katara," Leo told her. "It's not the same," Katara argued, facing her friends. "Hama attacked the innocent. This man, he's a monster." "Katara, she was my mother too," Sokka tried. "But I think Aang, Leo, and Master Splinter might be right on this." "Then you didn't love her the way I did," Katara exclaimed, causing the group to look in surprise, especially Sokka. "Katara, I do not like that tone of yours," Raph told her. "You don't have any room to talk, Raph. You're not exactly anger management material," Katara argued. "Neither are you, especially after what you did to Leo," Raph exclaimed. This caused Zuko, Karai, Sokka, and Casey to look in surprise, this being the first time hearing this. Katara's anger seemed to be replaced with a wide-eyed expression before she hung her head down in shame. "Wait, what?" Zuko questioned. Raph began to speak. "When you guys were at that boiling rock, Leo tried to get Katara to blow off some steam with a sparring match, and when he offered his hand to help her, she lashed out at him and even made him bleed. This caused the group to look at Katara with concern. I was not aware of this. Karai said. Yeah, you really shouldn't be doing this, kid. It'll be the biggest mistake of your life. Casey told Katara. Katara's anger returned. This man killed my mother. You don't know what that's like. This time it was Casey's turn to get angry. Oh really? You know that oversized bastard, Hun. He killed my dad. Katara looked in surprise. Everyone else, Aang, Zuko, Karai, and Sokka looked towards Casey while Raph, Splinter, and Leo had understanding looks on their faces. What? Katara breathed. Casey sighed. A long time ago when I was a kid. Flashback, New York City. A 10-year-old Casey stood in front of a burning store with several punks from the Purple Dragon Gang, led by a younger, but still muscular Hun, walked toward him. Some young punks were shaking my dad down for protection money. They called themselves the Purple Dragons. When he wouldn't pay, they torched our store. As Hun approached the 10-year-old Casey, he raised his fists up ready for a fight, but Hun picked him up by the collar and pulled him close. You tell your old man, punk, next time pay up or else. Hun said as he threw Casey down before he and the Purple Dragons walked away. Casey looked at the burning store that belonged to his family. New flashback. The 10-year-old Casey stood in his apartment as his father, Arnold Jones, picked up a baseball bat, but Casey's mother, Mrs. Jones, tried to stop her husband. Arnold, please, it's too dangerous. Please Pops, don't go. Young Casey begged. Arnold looked down at his son. He kneeled down and put a hand on his shoulder. I got a kiddo. I put everything we had into that store. I can't just let them get away with this. I'm going to the police. But they said, no cops. Young Casey continued to beg. They said if you. Casey, sometimes you just gotta stand up for what's right. Arnold told his son. Even if the odds are against ya, even if you're all alone, you gotta just stand up and do the right thing. Casey and his mother watched as his father left the apartment, but that would be the last time they'd see him. But my old man didn't make it to the cops. Hun got to him first. End flashback. Casey had told his story. Leo, Raph, and Splinter looked down in sorrow. Karai and Zuko especially looked in sympathy, as did Aang and Sokka. Katara looked at Casey with wide eyes. Casey. Casey looked directly at Katara. So don't tell me that I don't know how it feels. Heck, I even had a chance to get payback on Hun, like what you're planning to do, but I didn't. Because if I did that, I'd be no different from him. Casey's right, Katara. Aang agreed. When Master Yoshi's spirit showed me what happened between him, Mashimi, and Tang Shen, the Ancient One said that revenge is like a splinter, it gets under your skin and can poison your life. That's cute, Zuko said. But this isn't ninja preschool, it's the real world. Yeah, well in the real world, your anger can take you down, make you act just like the guys you're fighting. Raph argued. But I know he's out there. Katara said. I know I can find him now, I feel like I have no choice. Katara, you do have a choice. Forgiveness. Aang told her. Aang, I understand you have your beliefs. Karai began. However, there are people in my world, that are inherently evil and have committed crimes that can never be forgiven. The Shredder is a prime example of that. That's right, it's the same as doing nothing and just letting them get away with it. Zuko agreed. No it is not, Master Splinter stated. Simply doing nothing is easy, anyone is capable of doing that. But to forgive, that is much more difficult. It's not just difficult, it's impossible. Katara said before walking off. Zuko and Karai walked off, leaving Aang with Leo, Casey, Raph, Sokka, and Splinter. We all know she's gonna try to sneak off tonight, right? Raph asked the group. Yep. Leo, Sokka, Aang, and Casey all answered at the same time. This is something she must do, we can all understand that. Master Splinter said. However, revenge only feeds a never-ending cycle of hate. If she takes revenge against this man, what will stop his family and loved ones from seeking revenge against her? Or her loved ones for seeking revenge for her? This cycle never ends and only results in pain and death. So what do we do then? Aang asked, as Leo and Raph looked towards each other, both brothers having a good idea of what to do. Later that night, Katara, Zuko, and Karai were all dressed in black and ready to board Appa. Leo, Raph, Aang and Sokka quickly arrived on the scene. "So you were just gonna take Appa anyway?" Aang questioned. "Yes," Katara answered harshly. Raph rolled his eyes. "Yep, knew it. It's okay, because I forgive you." Aang tried. "That give you any ideas?" "Way to be subtle, Aang," Leo said with sarcasm in his voice. "Don't try to stop us," Katara stated as Zuko packed the last of their things, and Karai sheathed her sword. "Who we said we were going to?" Raph questioned. "In fact, I'm coming with you." "You are?" Zuko asked in mild surprise. "Got a problem with that?" Raph questioned again. "Why would you want to come with us?" Karai asked. "Two reasons," Raph answered. "1, we might run into some foot goons, so you'll need some extra muscle. 2, I know a thing or two about anger issues, so I'm gonna make sure little sugar queen here doesn't do anything stupid." Katara glared at Raph before relenting. "Fine, just try not to slow us down." "I'm a ninja, I don't slow anyone down," Raph replied. "No one is going to stop you, Katara," Leo told her. "This is something you have to do, and we respect that. But don't do something that you may regret for the rest of your life." Katara nodded before she, Raph, and Karai boarded Appa, with Katara at the reins. Zuko picked up the sack of their supplies, but Leo spoke to him. "Zuko, you watch their backs." "I will." Zuko nodded before he got onto Appa. "Thanks for understanding, guys," Katara said before taking the reins. "Yo Katara." She looked off to the side to see Casey. "Listen, my old man told me that sometimes you just gotta stand up for what's right. Even if the odds are against ya, even if you're all alone, you gotta just stand up and do the right thing." Katara looked somewhat surprised for a minute before snapping the reins. "Yip, yip." Appa gave a groan before taking off into the sky with Leo, Aang, Casey, and Sokka watching the bison fly away. "You know, for a kid and a mutant turtle, you guys are pretty wise," Sokka told them. "Thanks, Sokka," Leo replied. "Usually the old wise man thing gets annoying, but right now I'm impressed," Casey stated with a slightly mischievous smirk. Leo's eyelids lowered, as did Aang's. "I appreciate that. So, can I borrow Momo for a week?" Sokka asked. Aang looked towards Sokka. "Why do you need Momo?" Sokka shrugged. Leo simply face-palmed. Even Casey looked weirded out. Foot Mystic Shrine. The 5-foot mystics watched through their pool as they saw Appa fly through the night sky with Katara, Zuko, Raph, and Karai on board. "Things have taken an interesting turn, my brothers," the Earth Mystic observed. "Indeed. The girl may have failed our expectations to eliminate the turtles and turn against the Avatar, however, our influence on her has left her psyche in a weakened state," the Water Mystic observed as well. "The anger she suppressed deep in her soul has resurfaced, and she knows exactly where to direct it," the Fire Mystic said. "She will confront the one who killed her mother," the Metal Mystic stated. "And with the proper influence from us, she will take his life, and become a truly hateful creature. Once the Avatar sees this, and knows how dark the soul of his beloved truly is, he too will become vulnerable. Vulnerable enough for us to use to complete our plan," the Wind Mystic said. "Then let us continue to observe, and see just how far into the dark side she will go," the Fire Mystic said as they watched this play out. Appa flew across the night sky as Raph put on a black suit, identical to the ones Katara and Zuko were wearing. "So, anyone got an actual plan or are we just gonna go blowing random stuff up?" Raph questioned. "We need to find the Fire Navy communication tower," Zuko answered. "All the Navy's movements are coordinated by Messenger Hawk, and every tower has to be up to date about where everyone is deployed." Katara heard every word. "So once we find the communication tower, we bust in and take the information we need?" "No," Karai replied. "If we simply attack, the soldiers will likely try to warn the southern raiders, but more importantly, the Foot will intercept the warning and will know where to find us. It's best we do not attract their attention in this matter. Then we'll stick to the shadows. So don't do anything stupid, Katara. We need you to stay focused," Raph told her. "Oh, I am plenty focused," Katara replied with anger in her eyes. Appa took cover behind a large mound just across from a small island with a tall tower, the communication tower they were looking for. Katara, Raph, Zuko, and Karai, all dressed in black, ran forward. Katara bent a large patch of ice from the water, which they all leapt onto. She then used her waterbending to propel them close to the tower. She followed with the wave and propelled them straight upwards. Raph and Karai were the first to make it up to the lowest ledge of the tower with their ninja agility. They each reached down, Karai grabbed Katara, and Raph reached for Zuko as they were quickly pulled up. Karai and Raph took point as they hid behind a corner. Karai held her hand back to keep Zuko and Katara from coming closer. The kunoichi saw a few guards come out from an open door. Once they were clear, she made a motion for them to proceed. All four quickly and quietly ran towards the open door and inside the tower. Zuko was quick to shut the door behind them so they wouldn't be spotted. Once inside, Raph looked to the upper right wall and found an air vent large enough for them to crawl through. He used his sei to pry the cover from the vent. Katara entered first, followed by Karai, Zuko, and finally Raph. They climbed through the vent and made it to an office where a female guard was working on a map. The group looked down from a wire covering in the ceiling. They knew that she needed to go, but they couldn't attack her and alert anyone. They had to be subtle about this. Katara used her waterbending to spill some of the ink over the map. The guard looked in frustration before she got up and left the room to get some fresh paper and more ink. With her gone, Raph kicked the vent covering down as all four jumped down and entered the room. "We need to hurry," Karai said. They agreed and began to search for the info they were looking for. "Okay, Southern Raiders," Zuko mused as he took out a scroll. "Did you find it?" Raph asked. "Yeah," Zuko replied as he took out a map and lay on the table for them to see. Bam! He pointed to a spot on the map. "On patrol near Whale Tail Island." "Whale Tail Island, here we come," Katara muttered darkly as the four of them left through the vent in the ceiling. Team Avatar campsite. Pretty much everyone was still asleep, as it was very early in the morning. The only exceptions were Aang, who was pacing around relentlessly, unable to get any sleep throughout the night, as well as both Leo and Master Splinter. "Where are they? Do you think they're okay?" Aang rapidly questioned. "I don't know," Leo responded. "Do you think she found him?" Aang questioned again. "I don't know," Leo responded again. "Do you think she'll make the right choice?" Aang questioned, yet again. Leo sighed. "Aang, I don't think there is a clear-cut right or wrong choice here." Aang looked back to Leo with surprise. "Leo, how can you say that?" "Leonardo is right, young Aang." Master Splinter agreed, further surprising Aang. "The world and the choices we make are not so black and white as we would like to believe." "But the monks taught me," Aang tried. "Yeah, the monks taught you," Leo interrupted. "They didn't teach the rest of us, and certainly not Katara. We get you have your beliefs on forgiveness, but Karai was right about what she said yesterday. There are people out there who cannot be forgiven. Take Shredder for example. He murdered Master Yoshi, and countless other people. He tried to kill me and my brothers, my sensei, my friends, you and your friends. He slaughtered who knows how many Fire Nation soldiers and completely took control of the entire country. Can you honestly look at someone like him, someone who is that evil and beyond any hope of redemption, and say you forgive him?" Aang took the moment to try and think of an answer. He knows the crimes Shredder has committed, as well as seen the evil in his eyes. Those were the eyes of someone who has no intention of turning good. He simply lowered his head. Master Splinter chose to spoke. "I can understand how Katara feels. The Shredder took away my Master Yoshi. To this day I still have not forgotten the sorrow in my heart. And that is one of the reasons I choose to fight him, to avenge my master and defeat the monster responsible for his death." Aang looked towards Splinter. "But, isn't that still revenge? Just feeding the cycle like you said." "I said that was one of the reasons," Master Splinter replied. "I fight the Shredder for a number of others. First, he has targeted my family, and I fight now to protect them. And second, he is great evil and his plans for this world are likely far worse than anything the late Ozai and his forefathers have ever planned. He must be stopped. But this is beside the point. Katara's beard this burden in her heart for years and she finally has a chance to be rid of it. And no matter what happens, we still have to be there for her." Leo said. "Even after what she did to you?" Aang asked, referring to the wound she inflicted upon Leo. "Katara spoke to me about that," Master Splinter said. "She feels regret for her actions, she knows her anger is poisoning her. I believe that no matter what choice she makes, she will finally be free from her anger. Aang sighed as he sat down with them. I hope you guys are right. So do we. Leo responded. Appa continued to fly ever closer to Whaletail Island and hasn't stopped all day, even now the sun was setting. Katara was still at the reins with Raph, Zuko, and Karai in the saddle. You should get some rest. Zuko advised. We'll be there in a few hours, you'll need your strength. Oh, don't you worry about my strength. Katara replied, keeping her eyes forward. I have plenty. I'm not the helpless little girl I was when they came. Flashback. Little Katara looked with fearful eyes at the black snow descending on her village. I'm going to find Mom, she frightfully said to her brother as she ran towards their house. She ran, being propelled by fear and a natural instinct to seek safety in the form of her mother. Little Katara made it to her igloo. Mom. She however stopped in her tracks when she saw a Fire Nation soldier facing her mother. The soldier turned towards her and Katara looked with fearful eyes. Just let her go, and I'll give you the information you want. Kya told the soldier. You heard your mother, get out of here. The soldier exclaimed at Katara. Mom, I'm scared. Little Katara said truthfully to her mother. Go find your dad, sweetie. I'll handle this. Kya told her with a comforting smile. The frightened child looked with tears of fear in her eyes as she saw the glare from the soldier before running out to find her father. I ran as fast as I could. She made it to find her father, still helping to fight off the soldiers. Dad, Dad, she screamed as she saw her father knock down a Fire Nation soldier. Please, I think Mom's in trouble. There's a man in our house. Hakoda heard his daughter's cries. Kya, Hakoda and another warrior ran back to the igloo as quick as they could. End flashback. But we were too late. When we got there, the man was gone, and so was she. Katara chalked up a bit at the last sentence. Zuko, Karai, and even Raph looked in sympathy. Your mother was a brave woman. Karai offered. Katara looked down as she held her mother's necklace with tears in her eyes again. I know. Night had fallen. Katara decided to take their advice as she slept to get some strength. Raph and Karai kept the lookout on the sides, while Zuko was at the reins of Appa as the sky bison continued to fly. He looked in a spyglass and spotted their target. There, Katara, Raph, and Karai looked to see the ship in the distance. See those sea raven flags? He tossed the spyglass to Katara. Those guys the Southern Raiders? Raph asked. Yes, it's them. Zuko confirmed. We have found them, Karai stated. Katara lowered the spyglass with a determined vengeful look on her face. Let's do this. Appa quickly fell towards the water and went straight under right before Katara used her waterbending to create a bubble around Appa's head to give him and the group oxygen. Appa swam underneath the ship and directly toward it. On top of the ship, the Southern Raider, Fire Nation soldiers appeared to be simply minding their own business as they made small talk. So there I was and I was like, you know, you could. Before he could finish, a water tentacle wrapped around him and flung him clear off the ship. The other raiders looked off the side to see what had just happened. Appa meanwhile had swum underneath the ship and surface on the other side. Raph and Karai quickly jumped off and landed on the deck of the ship. Before the raiders could even react, the two ninjas quickly dispatched them. Raph did a split kick to knock out two of them, before he grabbed a third by the wrist and flung him off the ship completely. Karai thrusted her palm into the chest of one to send him flying to a wall where he fell unconscious upon impact. She then turned to the remaining two and delivered precise neck chops to knock them out. Appa then landed on the deck of the ship as Katara and Zuko got off. One firebender struggled to get up, but Katara quickly thrusted a massive stream of water to send him flying off the ship as well. With the initial threat dealt with, the four of them ran inside the ship, with Katara having water whips on her arms. A door opened on the side, but Zuko intercepted the sneak attack as he grabbed the raider's sword and kicked him back into the room, before closing the door and sealing it shut with the sword. They came to the door that led to the bridge of the ship. This must be it, Raph stated. Yeah, it's the bridge, the leader is likely in there. Zuko agreed. Karai looked towards the younger girl. Are you ready, Katara? She lowered her mask before thrusting her tentacles forward to literally blast open the door. The moment it opened, Zuko came in and intercepted a fire blast from the captain. Raph then came in next, Right when the captain shot a fireball at him, Raph rolled underneath and delivered a roundhouse to knock the captain down. He tried to get up, only to have Karai flash a katana directly toward his face. "Stay down," she told him with glaring eyes. The captain glared at her. "Who are you?" Raph picked him up by the collar. "What, you don't recognize her?" He made him face Katara. "Believe me, you will." He threw the captain down. He was about to get up and firebend, but before he could, he felt a pulling sensation in his wrist. What's happening to me?" The captain had no control over his body as it was bent and throttled outside of his control. Karai and Zuko both looked shocked at this, while Raph looked towards Katara and saw her in a waterbending stance. He looked in surprise at this, as he knew Katara was bloodbending. The helmet fell off the soldier as Katara forced him to the ground. Karai was the first to regain her bearings. "Remember your previous raid on the Southern Water Tribe," she told the captain. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Please, I don't know," the captain begged. "Don't lie," Zuko exclaimed as he kneeled down to the captain and then pointed to Katara. "You look her in the eye, tell her you don't remember what you did." Katara used her waterbending to force the captain up on his knees. She looked at him with an expression of pure rage, but she saw his eyes, they were not the same eyes that she remembered. "It's not him," she said with a wide-eyed surprise. She released him from her bloodbending. "He's not the man." "What?" Raph and Zuko questioned at the same time. "How can that be?" Karai questioned as well. "He's the leader of the Southern Raiders. If he isn't the man, who is?" Katara had a guilty expression on her face before she began to walk out. The captain struggled to get up, but Raph grabbed him by the collar before pinning him to the wall. "Who is the last leader of the Southern Raiders, bub?" "The last guy who invaded the Southern Tribe," Raph interrogated. "You must be looking for Yan Ra. He retried 4 years ago," the captain answered. "Where is he?" Karai questioned. After retrieving the information from the captain about Yan Ra's location, they had continued flying on Appa. Raph was at the reins this time, while Katara slept. Zuko and Karai had not slept though, they were both curious about what exactly Katara did on that ship. "Raphael." Karai got his attention. "What was that?" Raph knew what she was talking about inside. "You guys remember that Hama lady?" "What about her?" Zuko asked as he and Karai were listening to him. "Well, we met her a little bit before the invasion," Raph began. "But the last time we saw her, she was just an old hag. But, she was a waterbender from the Southern Tribe like Katara. Several decades ago, during a Fire Nation raid, she was abducted and locked in prison. But she escaped after inventing her own technique, bloodbending." "Bloodbending?" Zuko questioned as he and Karai looked towards each other in surprise. "What's that?" "During the full moon, when waterbenders are at their strongest, they can bend the blood in a person's body, make them do what they want like a puppet." Raph explained. "It makes sense," Karai said. "The human body is more than 70% water." "Yeah, Hama had used this trick to become a borderline serial killer to get revenge on the Fire Nation." Raph continued. "She tried to force Katara to become a bloodbender like her. Katara refused and so we had a fight. Katara swore she'd never bloodbend but she ended up doing that anyway, just recently." Zuko finished. "Yeah," Raph nodded. "And it wasn't even the guy she had. It was just some random guy." Karai looked with sympathy. "To use such a technique, I cannot imagine what she must be feeling right now." As Katara continued to sleep, it looked as though her face was pained, as though she were having a terrible nightmare. Katara's eyes shot open and she found herself in the Southern Water Tribe. "What? I'm home," she wondered as she looked around. Katara heard a familiar giggle and looked to see her younger self, much to her surprise, along with a younger Sokka, playing with snowballs. "What's going on?" she wondered out loud. Her thoughts were cut off as black snow began to fall from the sky. "I'm going to find Mom," little Katara said as she ran past Katara, as though she weren't there. Katara then knew what this was. It was the day her mother died. She followed her younger self to her family's igloo and entered it just as her younger self did. "Mom!" little Katara exclaimed but stopped in her tracks. Katara too entered but her eyes widened. The man standing in front of her mother was not the same Fire Nation soldier that killed her mother, it was in fact the one person she feared even more, the Shredder. "Just let her go, and I'll give you the information you want." Kya told the shredder. The shredder said nothing as he faced Kya. He raised his clawed gauntlet, much to Katara's horror. No, she watched as the shredder brought his claws down on Kya, killing her. No, no, no. Katara fell to her knees and let her tears fall. Do you understand now? Katara looked up and looked in surprise to see that her younger self was talking directly to her. The moment you left your home and became a fighter, you became as much as a monster as the ones you fight. What? Katara questioned in disbelief. I left to help Aang. You know that's not true. Little Katara said in a monotone voice. You did it to seek vengeance for your mother's death. You swore you'd never used bloodbending and yet you still did. I thought he was the one who, Katara tried. It changes nothing. You used bloodbending on an innocent man, just like Hama. Little Katara continued. And what's worse, you struck down your own friend who was trying to help you. She continued, referring to Leo. Even now, you are still on a trail of vengeance. You and the darkness inside has now given way to a greater monster than what the Fire Nation could ever hope to be. Katara looked up to see the shredder approach her. When she looked at him, she saw him take off his helmet to reveal something that made her pupils shrink. It wasn't the face of Orokusake. It was her face. An adult Katara was wearing the armor of the shredder as she looked down with a scowl. You're, me. All anger, rage, and hatred. Little Katara continued. You will be the one to tear apart the Fire Nation, slaughtering every man, woman, and child in that country, and leave a trail of destruction across this pitiful world. You may say differently, but deep inside you know the truth. You are the shredder. The shredder Katara walked towards the terrified Katara and raised her claws. No, you can't be me. You just can't be. It's impossible. Katara screamed. Claws were brought down on her with a slash. Katara awoke from her nightmare with a scream. But she covered her mouth to prevent it from being too loud. She looked around to see she was still in Appa's saddle, with Karai and Zuko asleep in it. Katara looked to her hands as they shook. Can't sleep, huh? She looked to see Raph, still at the reins of Appa as he looked towards her. Katara climbed over and sat next to Raph. You wanna talk about it? Raph offered. Katara looked away as she hugged her knees. Raph, am I good person? To say Raph was surprised would be an understatement. What are you? Please, just tell me. Am I really good? Or am I just someone who's not too different from Shredder? Raph put his hand on Katara's shoulder. Katara, look at me. She looked at him as he had a serious expression. You're one of the most goody two-shoes people I know. Sure you can be naggy and bossy, but you got heart and lots of it, and that's what counts. Katara was a bit surprised to hear this kind of honesty from Raph of all people, but she still spoke. Then why are we doing this? Why am I really looking for this man? Look, I get it. Raph began. He killed your mom, and I'm sorry for that. I'll help you take him down, but be careful. Your own anger can take you down, make you act just like him. Master Splinter told me once, a true warrior finds balance in all things. Yeah, he told me the same thing. Katara replied. But, what if I don't have that? What if all that's inside me, is a monster? That's up to you, Raph said. We are who we choose to be, not what other people want us to be. People in our world say my brothers and I are monsters, but we don't buy that. We do the right thing cause it's right. If you want to be a monster, it's your choice, but if you want to be a good person, or even a hero, it's your choice, no one else's. Raph gave a slight smirk. The next thing Katara did, after letting all of this sink in, was let her face fall into Raph's chest as she sobbed a bit. Raph was a bit surprised but he patted Katara's back for comfort. Get some rest, you're gonna need it. Katara got up with a smile. Yeah, thanks Raph. The next day. It was a cloudy day in this small rural area in the Fire Nation. A middle-aged Yan Ra was tending to his garden, when his elderly and cranky mother came out. Yan Ra, you lazy piece of work. I need something. Yes mother. Yan Ra sighed. What is it? The tomato carrots from your garden are too hard for my gums. I need something soft and juicy. Yan Ra tried to put on a smile as he turned to her. Would you like something else from the garden? I would be happy too. Forget your stupid garden. His mother yelled at him. Get your grimy hinny to the market and buy me some real food. She walked back inside. Yan Ra stood up and left the garden. Storm clouds set in as he carried an empty basket and walked towards the local market. He came to a stand and started to pick some food and put it in his basket. The eerie wind blew a pair of chimes from a small building. Yan-Ra had a feeling he was being watched as he turned around to see no one. "Hello." He turned to the store owner. "Did you see someone?" The store owner shook his head. After paying for the food, Yan-Ra began to walk away. He walked down a pair of stone steps. As he walked though, the feeling washed over him again. He stopped for a moment and looked back up a flight of steps. "Hello. I someone there?" After getting no response, Yan-Ra continued on his way. However, he failed to notice that there was someone following him. Hidden behind a ledge were the masked Katara, Raph, Zuko, and Karai. "Is that him?" Karai asked in a whisper. "Yes, that's him all right." Katara recognized him right away this time. Raph put a hand on her shoulder. "Are you ready for this?" She nodded before they fell back into the shadows. Rain finally began to pour down as Yan-Ra walked down the path to his house. He stopped a moment and turned around, before walking down the path yet again. He knew there was someone following him. He stopped for a moment as he heard footsteps on the puddles. "Nobody sneaks up on me without getting burned." He shot a fire stream at a bush. It burnt to a crisp, which the rain quickly put out. He didn't see anyone, so he proceeded to pick up his food and continued on his way. However, before he got a foot out, a chain was tossed at his right ankle, causing him to trip and fall over. The masked Karai appeared behind him, but before he could respond, a fire stream was shot towards him, forcing him to back up. The masked Zuko was in front of him, along with the masked Raph. "We weren't behind the bush," Zuko stated. Raph took out his say. "And I wouldn't try firebending again, if I were you, bub." Yan-Ra was looking quite scared. "Whoever you are, take my money, take whatever you want, I'll cooperate. We aren't here for anything like that," Karai told him as they cleared the way for the masked Katara. She removed her mask and faced the man below her. "Do you know who I am?" "No, I'm not sure," Yan-Ra replied. Katara did not like that response. "Oh, you better remember me like your life depends on it. Why don't you take a closer look?" Yan-Ra got a good look at her eyes and he instantly recognized her. Yes, I remember you now. You're the little water tribe girl." Flashback. "Just let her go, and I'll give you the information you want." Kya begged the younger Yan-Ra. "You heard your mother, get out of here." He barked at the little Katara. "Mom, I'm scared," she uttered towards her mom in fear. "Go find your dad, sweetie. I'll handle this," Kya assured her daughter with a comforting smile. As the little Katara ran out of the igloo, Yan-Ra turned to face Kya again. "Now tell me, who is it? Who's the waterbender?" "There are no waterbenders here," Kya told him. "The Fire Nation took them all away a long time ago." "You're lying," Yan-Ra rebutted. "My source says there's one waterbender in the Southern Water Tribe. We're not leaving until we find the waterbender. If I tell you, do you promise to leave the rest of the village alone?" Kya asked as she hung her head down. Yan-Ra nodded. "It's me," Kya lied. "Take me as your prisoner." Yan-Ra smirked almost evilly. "I'm afraid I'm not taking prisoners today." End flashback. Yan-Ra gave a fearful gulp as he had a good idea what was coming up next. However, what he, as well as Raph, Karai, Zuko, and the vengeful Katara didn't notice was that behind Katara there was a brief red glow and the invisible and intangible forms of all 5 foot mystics appeared with lightning flashing in the background. No one could see the foot mystics as they were in their astral form, but that didn't mean they wouldn't have an influence here. "She lied to you." Katara looked down in sorrow. She was protecting the last waterbender. That took Yan-Ra by surprise. "What? Who?" She looked at him with a scowl. "Me," she yelled as she used her waterbending to stop the rain around them. Yan-Ra could only look in shock. Zuko, Raph, and Karai looked around and saw the dome of water forming around them. The foot mystics saw their chance. They spoke directly into Katara's mind. Nobody could actually hear them, but Katara heard these thoughts in her head. "Yes, this is your chance. Take your revenge. You have earned it." The fire mystic influenced. "This man killed your own mother. He ruined your life. He deserves to die." The water mystic influenced as well. This did seem to get into Katara's head as she bent all the rain and water around her to form dozens of razor-sharp ice spikes. "Yes, do it." The wind mystic influenced. With a yell, she thrusted all of them forward with the intent of tearing Yanra to literal pieces. He closed his eyes and held his arms out to protect himself, but nothing came. The ice spikes just stopped. Raph had put a hand on Katara's shoulder. She turned to him as he spoke. Katara, is this really what you want? Is this really what your mother would want? Her eyes slightly widened. She turned to the man who killed her mother. She looked at him in fear. Why do you hesitate? The metal mystic questioned, influenced. He is right there. Strike him down. Unleash all your hatred. The earth mystic influenced as well. It is clawing to get out. Give into your darkness. Fulfill your destiny, young Katara. The fire mystic influenced again. Become the killer you were always meant to be. Despite the dark influence inside her mind, she looked deep into heart and into her soul, and deep down she knew it was wrong. No, she answered Raph's question. It's not what I want at all. She let all the ice melt and all the water fall down as she lowered her stance. Yanra then fell on his hands and knees and began to beg. I did a bad thing, I know I did, and you deserve revenge. Yanra begged. So why don't you take my mother? That would be fair. Raph, Karai, and Zuko glared at him. Just how pathetic was this guy? I always wondered just what kind of person could do such a thing. Katara began. And I've seen monsters like that, monsters who kill and laugh about it. I thought you would be just like that. But now I see you for what you are. You're pathetic and sad and empty. Please spare me. Yanra begged yet again. But as much as I hate you, I just can't do it. Katara closed her eyes and began to walk away. Raph and Zuko gave Yanra final glares before walking away. At first, Yanra felt relieved, however, a small blade was thrown in front of him. He looked up in surprise to see Karai glaring down at him. If you truly feel remorse for what you have done, then you must find a way to atone for your sins. Karai told him. If not, then you have a way out of this pathetic life of yours right there. She gestured to the blade. It's your choice. Karai walked away with Zuko, Katara, and Raph, leaving Yanra alone with the blade. As they walked away, the transparent figures of the foot mystics looked on in disappointment. How disappointing, the water mystic said. She showed such promise. She could have been our greatest pawn. The earth mystic agreed. Regardless of our failure here, it will not stop what has been set in motion. The wind mystic stated. Yes, the pieces are falling into place. The metal mystic agreed. Even if the waterbender is no longer under her influence, the avatar will still play an important role for us. Indeed, darkness will fall, and the avatar will be the vanguard of that darkness. The fire mystic exclaimed as the mystics' astral forms vanished. It was late in the evening. Team Avatar, the Ninja Turtles, and their allies had taken refuge in Zuko's family's beach house on Ember Island. Katara sat alone on the docks as she let her feet dangle just above the water. Katara. Aang ran up to her on the docks, followed by Leo, Raph, Zuko, and Karai. Are you okay? I'm doing fine, Katara responded, not even facing the group. Raph and the others told us what you did. Leo told her. I think you made the best choice. Yeah, I'm proud of you. Aang agreed. I wanted to do it so badly. Katara said. I even felt something deep inside, it was practically yelling at me to do it. I wanted to unleash all my hate on him but, I couldn't. I don't know if it's because I'm too weak to do it, or if I'm strong enough not to. It takes no effort or strength to kill or destroy. Leo told her. But to show mercy, even if it's to someone you hate more than anything, that right there is real strength. You did the right thing. Aang added. Forgiveness is the first step to take to begin healing. Katara stood up and faced the group. But I didn't forgive him. I will never forgive him. She said honestly. We get it. Raph said. Some people ain't worth forgiving, trust me I know. But, he smiled. Letting go of your hate feels good, doesn't it? She smiled weakly. Yeah, it does. Thanks Raph. Anytime. Katara then turned to face the blue-clad turtle. Leo the first, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know it's no excuse but, I just hope you can forgive me. Leo put a hand on her shoulder. Just because a friend makes a mistake, doesn't mean you give up on them. She looked at him with a hopeful smile. So, we're good. He smiled back. Yeah, we're good. Katara hugged him in response, which he was happy to return. There was only one more thing she needed to do. Katara then faced both Zuko and Karai. "Guys, thanks for helping me." "Of course," Karai responded. "So," Zuko nervously rubbed the back of his neck. "Does that mean we're forgiven?" "Actually, I'm the one who should be asking for your forgiveness," Katara said, getting both their attention. She looked to Zuko first. "You never really had a choice in any of this. Your own father kicked you out of your own home, and said the only way you could come back was to catch Aang. I didn't know about that. And, that whole thing in Ba Sing Se, Shredder forced you into it. You never had a choice. I can't believe I never knew that. I am so sorry." Zuko nodded in response before Katara turned to Karai. "Karai, the Shredder, he's done terrible things. He almost killed Aang, and he laughed at it. And learning that you were his daughter, I thought you were just like him. I wanted to hate you." Karai looked down slightly. "I understand if you. But it's not you," Katara interrupted, getting Karai's attention. "It's never been you. It's me. I've let my anger and my hate blind me for too long." Before Karai could give any kind of response, Katara ran forward and hugged her. This caught Karai by surprise. "I am so sorry I misjudged you, both of you," she spoke in between tears. "It doesn't matter where you come from, or who your parents are, it's what's in your heart that counts. You've proven it time and again, but I just pushed you away. Please, forgive me." Karai slightly pushed Katara back and looked at her with a smile. "I have." Katara smiled as she rubbed the tears from her eyes. She walked past Zuko and gave him a brief hug as well before walking towards the house. Aang, Raph, Zuko, Leo, and Karai watched her. "You were right about what Katara needed," Zuko said. "Violence wasn't the answer. It never is," Aang said with a smile. "Then I have a question for you." Karai turned to Aang with a serious expression. "What do you plan to do when we face the Shredder?" Aang's smile vanished. He looked down in an expression of confusion and uncertainty. Leo placed a hand on his shoulder. "We'll think of something. Come on, I think we could all use a good night's sleep." Agreed. Aang, Raph, Zuko, and Karai all said at the same time. Katara had lain on the bed of her room as she was tired beyond belief. She let exhaustion take her as her eyes closed and she drifted off into sleep. Within her dream, Katara appeared to be in some form of white void. "Hello, young Katara." She turned around to see the spirit of Hamato Yoshi greet her with a smile. "Who are you?" "My name is Hamato Yoshi," he answered. She looked in surprise before she tried to give a respectful bow. "Master Yoshi, it's an honor. The Trolls and Splinter told me a lot about you. And I know much about you as well, young one." Yoshi spoke. "And I have a friend who wishes to see you." Yoshi gestured upward. Katara looked to see a bright light descending down. It then took the form of a humanoid, one wearing white clothes, identical to that of an angel. But it was the face that caught Katara's attention. She looked in surprise at the sight of it. "Hello sweetie." Kya's spirit greeted with a smile. "Mom." Katara breathed. "Yes." Katara's eyes grew somewhat fearful as she took some steps back. "Wait, why are you here?" "Now, I already." Kya's expression became serious. "Katara, that being that spoke with you at the Western Air Temple was not me." "What?" "It is true," Yoshi confirmed. "It was the work of dark magic. An evil influence had sought to corrupt you. It used your anger to try and turn you against your friends." Katara's eyes widened before she turned to Kya. "That wasn't you." Kya shook her head. "So, does that mean you're really?" "Yes. It's me, Katara, your real mother," Kya confirmed with a gentle smile. Katara saw the gentle look in her eyes. They were the same ones that she knew before. It was her. Tears formed in Katara's eyes. "Mom." She wasted no time in leaping into her mother's arms as she let tears of joy fall. Her mother happily embraced her as Yoshi gave a smile. After about a minute of hugging, they pulled apart. "Oh my little girl, you've grown up so much." Kya looked at her with pride. "Mom, I can't believe," Katara couldn't find the words to say. "You're really here." "I've always been with you, Katara." "In here." She placed a hand on her daughter's heart. A sorrowful look fell on Kya's face. "I am sorry that I left you. I've watched you grow, all the hardships you've endured, and I was not there for you." "Mom, you did it to protect me," Katara told her mother's spirit. "I know that. I don't hold any hard feelings at all." Kya smiled as she caressed her daughter's face. I've seen what you have done recently. I couldn't be more proud of you, and I know you're going to do great things. Her look became serious. But you must now that our world is danger. I know. Katara already knew. The shredder has to be stopped. I know you will do it. You, your brother, your friends, human and turtle. A sly smirk came to Kya's face. And your little boyfriend, Aang. Katara laughed as her cheeks turned red. Hamato Yoshi placed a hand on Kya's shoulder. We must go. Kya nodded in understanding. I have to go, Katara. But remember, I'll always be with you, in your heart. Trust your heart, trust your friends, I love you. I love you to Mom. Katara said as they hugged one last time. With that, both spirits of Yoshi and Kya ascended back into the white sky. Outside of Katara's dream, the young waterbender fell to sleep with a peaceful smile on her face. And this is the end of part 14 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't really leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.